I have helped produce 164 hours of network television, magic specials between Penn and Teller specials and Fool Us. I've done 164 hours of network
So
TV
it-
and
so
worked
it's your
with
fault.
it is a lot of it is my fault. Just ask anybody, that's why my email address is FU close. It's the first thing they say after the first meeting that we have. It's the way everybody signs off. And I thought, well, perhaps some of the stuff that I have learned from doing all this might be of help to other magicians. So I wrote this little ebook called Sleights Camera Action. It's available on michaelclose.com. It is no padding. It's just all meat. It is not huge, but in particular, it focuses on uh, doing like talk show things in your neighborhood. Because for most magicians, maybe they'll do AGT, maybe they'll do Fool Us, but the most common place where a magician is going to be on TV is on your local television station, their morning talk
Absolutely.
show.
I've done
And
dozens of those for these illusionist tours, and I never know what to do. I got to get this book.
well, you can save yourself a lot of grief just by performing some due diligence. And it almost all
Uh,
of it can be done without ever leaving your house because everything you need to know you can find out either from the internet or from oh, now my dog is gonna I just
I
put
love
him
the
to
dog
sleep.
theme today. This is so great.
The dog theme is great. These are my golden doodles.
Mike, even if the material is crap, you have the best title of any magic book I've ever heard of.
Well, there are ones that have been called Lights, Camera, Magic. And
No, they missed the whole boat.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I thought, well, what else can I do on that theme? So I've done that. Um, so basically what it is things that you can do, questions that you can ask, problems that you can solve so that, let's say you're working the state fair in your local place and the people who run the state fair call the TV station and they go, hey, we got this magician who's doing it, and some producer calls you. If you've done your homework, then the only question you have to ask is, when do you want me on the show? And then you talk to the producer and you ask, you have discussions about things that you could do and what have you. But basically, what this book talks about is the wild cards that get thrown into the mix, um, and how to deal with those problems. I mean, somebody was kind of upset that I guess that this wasn't a several hundred page book, but I can't I can't figure out your routines for you. I mean, I can, but I can't do that in a book. I mean, if you want to talk to me about I do this trick and this trick and this trick, I can work with you. But I've explained the kinds of things you need to know in other publications. So if you combine this one, this Sleights Camera Action, with another book I put out called The Well-Tuned Magician, which is about the kind of questions I ask when I look at Fool Us material. I mean, it's all there. So
It has given you such an interesting perspective. This job, this gig of yours, 11 years being the magic consultant on that TV show, has given you such a unique insight. You see more magic than anybody else, and you have a very narrow view. You know what has to end up on TV. So you kind of have this shorthand now, I'm sure, with the producers, and you did with Johnny and Penn and Teller. You must have this shorthand where you can suss up an act, you can size them up pretty quickly now,
well, I can.
at least for your purposes.
Yes, and we do have to understand here that but television is no different than any other venue. I mean, if you're going to work in a restaurant, you should find out about what restrictions that restaurant has. I mean, Illusions had its own back in the day. I mean, you were out there. That's when you and I really got to
Yeah.
know each other, that time that you came out. But that restaurant was more forgiving than some restaurants. I mean, Illusions was the first restaurant that I worked at where they put the magic at the end. Normally, a restaurant wants you to kill that time between the um,
You're there for the meal. Yeah.
So tell us how you get the TV host. Oh, you live a good, clean life. You know, I just had a question of, there's a video of me um, on a TV show from the late 90s where I was not prepared to do a trick with the newscaster back at the station. You know, I was just doing tricks for the guy who, doing the remote broadcast with me. And the guy happened to name the six of clubs was the card he wanted. And I was on channel 8, so I just counted down to the eighth card, and it was the six of clubs. Thank you. Thank you, Simon Aronson. And the guy got all excited, and I said, well, the problem is people are going to think we set this up. And he says, no, because I almost named the eight of diamonds, which is the ninth card in
Oh my
Simon's
gosh.
stack. And so presto changeo top changey, and you get the greatest card trick that's ever
That
been done
was
on
a
TV.
gift handed down from baby Jesus to you on.
But the interesting thing, and I point this out to everybody, is I asked him if he wanted to change his mind. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the rule when you do that kind of work. If they hand you the
exactly.
material, you have to be willing to give it right back to them. But it's a very powerful thing when they don't. You just have to be willing to throw it all away.
Mike, thank you so much for jumping in here and
Hey, no problem.
saying hi.
MichaelClose.com.
We're going to take a little 10-minute break so people can go to the bathroom, and Eric Mead is coming up next, but amazing to have you here, man.
Oh, thanks. Well, first of all, it's a fantastic cause, and I really applaud, so much what Jason and Zach do for these animals, because, I have a great love in my heart for dogs, and the story behind that one is just breaks your heart. And so anyway, I'm happy to support the cause. I really am, and you too, Guy, because I love you too. Thank you, David, for doing this.
Okay, bye, everybody. Hey, thanks, Mike. We'll see you
Okay,
soon.
man.
And everybody,
Okay.
we're going to take a 5-minute break now. See you back here in 5 minutes. I know it'll say 10 minutes on my thing, but I'm going to change it to 5. Here we go.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, Mike.
Bye now.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome, man.
All right, David. Let's make it happen. I think you're on, Eric. And
Oh, am I waiting for an introduction or like an
Uh,
lead or an anything, or am I just like, hey, go?
Here's the goddamn Eric made.
Okay, let me change my view so I can see myself.
and are we supposed to see Chris Korn at the same time?
Well, Chris will be on in just a second. I'm going to talk for a moment first. Uh, yeah, okay. So, hi, everybody. It's a little unnerving to be in this space. I haven't done shows like this since the pandemic when I was doing Zoom shows, and I never did them where I couldn't see everyone and interact with everyone. So it's weird to me to only be able to see my panelist friends. And let me see if I can make myself my big screen. 1 second, 1 second. It's been a while for me. There I am. Okay. So a couple of things before I get started. Number one, I did invite Chris Korn to be my source. Like a week ago, I said to David, hey, it says we have special guests. Do we have special guests? And he said, we have a couple people coming in, but if you'd like to invite somebody. So Chris and I had a conversation about what we might talk about. And so in a little bit, I'm going to introduce my special guest, Chris Korn. Second thing, Doc Eason is somewhere out there in the house. My good brother, who I could hit his house with a slingshot from my house. So he's that close. And he has a brand new book out called Cocktails and Doctales, which he has kindly offered to donate one of a signed copy to our silent auction. So I wanted to put that out there and have whoever needs to take care of that, take care of that, add that in. I think it retails at 30. It would be great if we could get, you know, more than that for a signed copy as part of this fundraiser. And then lastly, before I really start formally, I wanted to just offer, I don't want to say they are improvements or even comments, but just some notes about everything that we've seen thus far from my point of view. So we began today with Jason England. And Jason was talking about technical false shuffling and showing us some really, I thought, brilliant work on it and how to practice it and some things that I didn't know. And I've been doing shuffles like that my whole career. But he failed to mention that all of that technical work is great if you are doing gambling demonstrations or in an actual gambling game. But if you're a magician doing shows for people, what's more important than super refined technique? And don't get me wrong, I think all of us want to always work to have our technique be as good as it can possibly be. I'm not saying be lazy. I'm saying you should have the best technique you can. But more important than that is the attitude you have towards shuffling. I think when you're doing false shuffles as a magician, it should be utterly unimportant, and you shouldn't look at it, and you certainly shouldn't have a close-up camera come down and show exactly the refined positioning of your fingers and such. No, it's a shuffle and then talking to the people, and as long as they are convinced the cards are mixed, then the shuffle has done its job. Next up was who? Mac? Was Mac second? I think so. It would be helpful to me, David, if you're there, for you to monitor the questions and the question part and sort of.
I will do it. I will do it.
Okay, so you could talk to me. I am not used to speaking to the void and having no energy coming back. This is why I hated doing Zoom shows in the pandemic. I would wear myself out. You know, when I do real shows for people live, I get energized by it and I come off the stage and I'm like pumped up and I can't go to sleep for hours. When I would do those Zoom shows, I was exhausted after 45 minutes because there is no back and forth between me and the audience. And we can talk.
Eric, I don't know if you were going to talk about this, but I do have a question in here for you. Is there any info you can share with us on the Conover book, release date, etc.?
What I can tell you about it is the writing is all completely done. The pictures are all completely done, and they're not color corrected because they're black and white. They're fixed, however you fix pictures. And we have turned the manuscripts completely over to our publishing partners at Vanishing Ink. And it is now in their hands to do the layout, the proofreading, and all of that jazz. I know it's underway. We were hoping to have them by Christmas, but that's not going to quite happen. So you can certainly expect them in the first half of next year. I assume there's applause or a yay or a something out there. The silence kills me. Anyway, Matt King, you can learn that rope trick if you want to. It's a good trick. I like it. But really, the stuff he was saying about character and the idea of not having a character that conceals who you are, but having character that reveals the authenticity, the truth of who you are, that was the juice of Mac's talk. And I think weirdly, he sort of, after he was done with that, he goes, okay, let's do another trick. And I felt like we should have had a moment there to sort of take that in. So I wanted to kind of highlight that. Up next was Dave Williamson, our host and hero today. And Dave, I thought it was a great talk, by the way. Thank you for that. And I also had a chop cup at one time with a team. I was working on a TV show. And we were doing some backstage with a baseball team, and we were producing baseballs from under the chop cup, and I had their team logo on it. So I thought I was the only one who had ever had that idea. So it was nice to see that you also had that idea. Great minds thinking alike. What David didn't tell you in his talk was that he's just a sleight of hand genius. He's better than all of us. And to try to imitate what you see him do will lead to ruin. I know this because Mike Skinner was my first and David was my second, who I tried to really mimic the kind of beautiful, like effortless sleight of hand that they did. And it just didn't fit my hands. And so I think it's important to say and to understand that certain magicians, when you learn from them, you need to understand the lessons, but also learn to adapt it to your own style and how your own working is. We especially see that, I think, with the leftover, wrong way of saying that, with the Slidini students who are still alive, leftover, sorry. And you can tell which ones really copied Slidini and continue to, like every gesture, every motion, and those who took the lessons of Slidini and really learned to be themselves in that. I think that was the thing that when David was talking, I was thinking about the most, like his false transfers and stuff, which just not, the style of them would not fit my hands. And so as much as I would love to be David Williamson, I can't, I'm not. And probably most of us aren't either. Who came after David? Who was after David? Michael. I have nothing to add to Michael Weber's talk. I didn't understand a fucking word of it. Like when he started laying out that matrix of cards and dealing on top of each other and said, you just cover the 11s and then you pick them up in order. I was like, I don't know what he was talking about. I'm going to get a personal tutorial on all of that, I think. Amazing material. And it was clear that in the first part of it, all that 10 card stuff, I'll use all of that. Then came Paul. And what I learned from Paul is that I didn't even have to really be here today. I could have made a video and gone with my family to Rudai Reservoir, where they are on a boat right now. I love that trick that Paul did, and most of the material from those books, from the unillustrated. I'm drawing a blank on the title of those books. What were they called? Someone? No one? Everyone's muted but me. Okay, never mind. And finally, I won't be able to talk at all about Derek Delgadio because he's coming after me, but I did have a conversation with him a couple days ago where we talked about what he might talk about, and I was going to say something about that as a joke, but then he told me today that he changed the whole thing and now he's doing something completely different, so I just can't wait to see it. Okay, with all of that, I'm going to tell you some stories and I'm going to talk about magic a little bit, and my theme is sort of how to take tricks and make them into miracles. I consider myself to be in the miracle business, right? When people hire me to come entertain at their events or entertain at their parties or whatever, I have a very short window of time to spend with an audience. And so I'm not a believer anymore in having a lot of filler material and having interesting things that aren't that aren't as strong as they can be. In the days of the Tower, those of you who know my career or know about my past, I used to work at the Tower. Hi, Doc Eason. Where we were working 6 hours a night, 4 nights a week, right? I did that for 14 years. And there I had a massive repertoire, and a good hunk, maybe a quarter of a third of it, or a third of it, was material that was not like really great, strong magic, but like time filler stuff that was interesting and had nice scripts to it, but they were like puzzles and bar bets and things because I had all the time in the world. And it's sort of where I developed my slow pace, which still exists to this day. I am not like a speedy, rapid fire performer. I talk a lot. And that all came from the Tower where I had to fill time. But now I have an hour with an audience, and I feel like if you have an hour to make an impression and that's all they're ever going to know about me, yes, I need to like have a point of view, and yes, I need to express some things that are artistic in nature, but really the material that I choose has to be super strong. And I have gone almost entirely in the direction of everything should be a closer. Everything should be as strong magic as possible, and nothing should just be like nice, interesting material is uninteresting when you have a short window with an audience. So I want to talk about how to take a trick, any trick, and turn it into a miracle trick. And the lens that I want to look at this through today is the location of 4 aces. So let's start with this. I give the cards a little shuffle. Notice that that is not a false shuffle of any kind. Yes. Okay. And I'll just ask you, and normally when I lecture live, I try to not have it be a monologue like it's going to be today, but a dialogue, and I ask lots of questions. So I'm going to ask them, and then I'm going to answer them. So check this out. If I wanted 4 aces and I just do a little cut like this, look, there's an ace, right? And then I'll mix the cards a little bit. And there is a second ace. That means it's more difficult each time you produce an ace because there are less aces in the deck. So the percentage of hitting one when there's 4 and 52 is greater than 2 and 50. Sounded like I was slipping into Michael Weber's lecture for a second, didn't it? That's 2 aces. And I look at a woman and I say, would you rather see one at a time now or both at the same time? And as she answers both, I say, yeah, that's what I thought you'd say. Ace, ace. I'm assuming there's applause. It's so weird to be in silence.
It's deafening.
Deafening applause. So let me ask, I mean, what do you think of this, right? This is a very simple and I think very good ace cutting routine. I like it. I have done it forever. It's based on the routine from John Mendoza, Book of John. I've made a few sort of tweaks to it just to sort of make the handling look a little less controlled and my hands are off more. But basically it's that. And I think it's really good. But I don't think it's magic. It looks to the people like skill, like sleight of hand. When people watch that, they go, oh, he's really good. I wouldn't want to play cards with him, right? So let's do another one. Maybe this is more magical, right? I'm going to make 2 fans like this. And then I'm just going to wave these fans of cards over the table. And as I do, look at that, an ace just sort of appears down on the table, and then a third, and then a fourth like this. Ta-da! This is from one of the Paul Harris books, an early Paul Harris book. Can't remember what he calls it now. But I think this moves us more towards being magical. It still is sleight of handy. Like people understand that you are somehow doing it, but it doesn't look like just gambling technique or like shuffles. It's like they're appearing, right? A little bit. But I don't think it's a miracle yet. I still think when people watch that, it's prettier and it's more magical, quote unquote magical, but it's not yet magic because magic to me has to have an element of impossible. When I have an hour plus to talk about these ideas, I would show you 3 or 4 more Ace productions, and they would escalate in their sort of magical. I would do the Bill Goodwin one with the sandwiches. What does he call that? Hold the mayo, I think. And then the sleeve aces from Variations and all of that. But now I'm going to show you the one that we're going to talk about, which is this. I can shuffle the cards. And let's say I want 4 aces. So all I'm going to do, barehanded like this, I'm just going to dribble the cards from my hand down to the table. And instantly, I don't know how clear it is on the camera, all 4 aces appear face up on the top. I learned this forever ago when Ben Harris, the Australian magician, came on his first US tour. And when he came to Colorado, I volunteered to drive him around. So I saw his lectures in Fort Collins and Denver and Colorado Springs. And we spent a lot of time together. And he did this in his lecture, but not as a production of cards. He did it as an ending to an ambitious card routine. And the move is called Super Flip. You can look it up in the 80s, somewhere in the mid 80s, Ben Harris. I'll give you a quick tutorial on it. It's simple. It's not difficult, but it is sort of knacky. You have to kind of train yourself, but I have taught lots of people to do this. And in a couple hours, most people can do it pretty reliably. And some people can do it in 10 minutes. But the idea is this. I'm going to dribble the cards to the table, and the last card, just this top card, is going to flip over and land face upon the deck. And how you do it is you don't start with a whole deck. You start with about half of the deck so that you have a little smaller packet, which seems to help with the grip of that last card. And you dribble these onto the half that's on the table until there's just one card left in my hands. Uh-oh. Hold on a second. One second, everybody.
We can still hear you.
For some unknown reason, my phone keeps being automatically connected to my Zoom. Let me just turn my phone off entirely. Am I back?
We can still hear you.
Okay.
There you are.
Now you're back.
So if that happens again, I apologize. I don't know why, but my phone just keeps connecting to the camera. I dribble these cards to the table about half, and then until there's just one card left in my fingers here. And now what happens is you bow this down, and you don't try to shoot it or flick it to you just let go of it entirely. And by the tension on the card, if you practice enough to get the tension right, I'm holding it only by this corner, the bottom corner and the top corner, and then I'm bowing it with my middle finger, but all the way over here at the right edge, right from my point of view. And then if I just let go of it from about 4 or 5 inches up, it will turn over and land face up on top of the deck. It's not like shooting it to the deck. You literally dribble everything and then let go. And it'll turn over like this. And in the case of producing the aces, you don't need it to land square. In fact, it's better if it lands somewhere unsquared on the pack. When Ben Harris did this, he did it as the ending to an ambitious card routine. And he had this great sort of handling, I'll show it to you, where he did like a convincing control, which I always call the unconvincing control, but a convincing control. And then he turned the cards down like this so that this one was sticking out, and he had controlled this card to the top, the ambitious signed card to the top. And then he would push this card in and dribble, and that card would appear on top. Bang. It was like nice. And then in passing, he just said this can also be used to produce 4 of a kind. By turning 3 cards face up underneath the top card and doing the exact same move. You're not trying to flip over 4 cards. You're only still flipping over the top card. But because these 3 are face up underneath it, the 4 cards seem to appear. So we have this situation. This is the actual situation, is 3 aces underneath the top ace, which is face down. And then we do the move that I was just now describing, where I dribble everything, which means those 3 land face up, and then this one flips over and lands. And when you do it with a little bit of carelessness, it just looks like you dribble the cards to the table and suddenly the 4 aces appear. Pow. And when I heard him say it in his lecture, he didn't demonstrate this in the lecture. He just said it as an offhand. You could make 4 aces appear by doing this. I didn't hear anything else he said for the rest of his lecture, because I understood that he had just said to me a way to make 4 aces appear that maybe wouldn't look like sleight of hand. And so this is the starting place for this little discussion, right? How do we take this idea and remove from it the sense that you're doing sleight of hand so that it looks to people like it's magic, right? And I'll tell you a story. This is an absolutely true story. This is how I believe, and I mean, I could be talked out of this, but I believe that I once performed the greatest 4-ace production in the history of history. And it happened in 2002, and it happened at the Tower Comedy Magic Bar in Snowmass, Colorado on a Saturday night in February. And there was a full-on blizzard going on outside, like you read about. 2 feet of snow was coming down. And so because of that, the bar was particularly crowded. There was an hour wait for dinner, and the bar was packed with people. And I had finished the first show, and I was about to start the second show. Alex Rangel, who you all might know as a magician friend of mine, great friend of mine, was my bartender. He was to my left tending bar. And we were in between shows. I had finished the first show. Second show was about to start. And it was loud in the bar because it was crowded. It was jam-packed, 60-ish people in a bar that really held about 50. And over in the back left corner, from my point of view, was a group of loud people. And they were laughing and they were carrying on. And this can be a problem in the tower, because if you were never there, let me describe it. There were about 10 seats across the front, 4 seats down the right side, and then a space where there was standing room for 30-ish people. And then there was a level up to some tables and standing room in the back. We had a great big mirror over the bar so that you could see down onto the bar from a distance. But the people in the absolute corners at what we call the little corner tables at the corner spots couldn't actually see all that well when it was crowded. And so often they would break into conversation and it was difficult to manage. So I started to become aware of this really loud table over there in the left corner. And especially a guy whose voice was booming, and he was wearing a big cowboy hat, and I could see him, and I was worried about him. But show's about to start. So I turn to Alex and I say, let's go to half lights. And he turns the lights on the bar about halfway up and turns the music halfway down. This is like to start to signal to the crowd to start gathering their attention. And I'm figuring out we have a lot of people same from the first show. So now I have to do sort of a second show that's all different material. So I picked up the deck of cards from the bar, and while I'm talking to people, I went through and I culled out the 4 aces. And I was going to do an ace trick to begin my second show. So I palmed them in my left hand, and I turned to Alex and I said, by the way, I'm locked and loaded. And that was code for him that I can't 10 bar now, because we both 10 bar in the breaks. I'm making drinks and stuff. But once I'm palming a load of cards, I can't, like if someone orders a beer or anything, I'm like, I can't do it. So he now knows he's got to take over everything. So he's aware that I'm palming cards or doing something that my hand is dead. And now he takes the lights up to full, and he turns on my microphone, and the music is killed, and I start the show. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. As you're turning your attention to the bar, I want to make sure everyone has a drink. And now I see the guy from the back left corner stand up, and he's got a big beard, and he's wearing a big duster coat, and he's got a cowboy hat on. He's probably 6'4". So with this hat, he looks like he's 6'7" or 6'8", and he comes walking, marching right up to the bar. And he takes a $100 bill and he slams it down on the bar in front of me. And everyone's he's got everyone's attention, including mine. And he says, I've got a bet for you. And I don't like this at all. I've been in this business. I'm trying to start the show. I've been in this business a long time in this bar. And I know when people have bar bets, usually I know what it is, but not always. And I'm not going to start the show on someone else dictating what I'm doing. But there is a $100 bill sitting here, so I'm listening to him. And I said, hey, I'm about to start, but maybe afterwards, if you want to come up, I'd love to hear about your bet. And he goes, no, you don't. There's a deck of cards sitting here, right? But I've got the aces in my hand. He goes, you don't touch those cards. I'm going to shuffle them. I'm going to deal us each a poker hand, and whoever's got the best hand wins. And I look over at Alex, and Alex is looking at me, and he's trying to stifle a laugh, and he just shrugs his shoulders, giving me the, I think you should go ahead. But I'm not quite ready to go for it because I've seen a lot of bets like this, and sometimes there's a trick to it, and I don't want to get stuck. So I start to clarify. I said, well, let me get this straight. I'm going to shuffle the cards, or you're going to shuffle. And he goes, no, you don't touch the cards. I'll shuffle the cards, and then I'm going to deal us each 5 cards, and whoever has the best poker hand wins. And I said, is this some sort of trick thing where you're going to look through them and give you something? He said, no, straight up. I'll shuffle. I won't look. And I said, can I cut? And he said, no, you can't touch the cards or the bet is off. I said, can someone else cut? And he says, I'll pick someone. And he points to a lady. She'll cut. So you're going to shuffle. She's going to cut. You're going to deal us each 5 cards. Is this draw poker? And he says, no, 5 cards. Best hand wins. And I said, if I win, I get the $100. And he said, yes. And then I said, and if you win, and he says, if you win, you buy a round of drinks for me and my friends. And I'm looking back in that corner and I go, how many friends do you have? And he looks around the room and he goes, looks like about 60. So the crowd is now on his side, by the way, because they all want a free drink. And I said, let me get this straight. I buy a round for everyone in the bar versus your $100. You're going to have to come up with a lot more money because it cost me a fortune. So he pulls out and he reels off 4 more $100 and he sets it down. So it's now $500 on the bar versus a round of drinks for everybody. He's going to shuffle and deal, and he doesn't know that I'm palming the 4 aces, right? So I say, okay, you're on. And I say, Alex, I need a drink. And Alex pours me a drink and he brings it over and sets it down. And with my free hand, I take a sip and I set it down over here to my side. And now I know that I have one more problem to solve, which is he has said I can't touch the cards. If he means that I can't even touch my own cards, I'm doomed. So I get lucky. He takes the cards, he shuffles, the lady cuts, and he starts to deal us each a hand. And the first card he throws to me sort of slides not right in front of me. And I, with my clean hand, I move it over in front of me and I just leave it there. And he doesn't say anything. So now I know I'm golden. He deals a second card, deals a third card, and I'm using my free hand to, and by the way, I'm on the, these are palmed, but I have my hands on the edge of the bar like this, right? And he's dealing these to me. And when the 4th card arrives, I pick them all up and I go like this. And now the 5th card comes and I do the switch and I set them down and I pin them with my drink. And now I've switched everything and 4 aces are sitting there with another card. And now I start to think, oh man, I got to get these cards back into the deck somehow. And then I go, idiot. And I threw them on the floor. Alex is standing there watching me. They just go in a puddle of beer. So now I realize I'm about to bum everyone out when I win. So I said, listen, you came into my bar. You know I'm a magician. You watched the first show. You know I'm going to win this bet. And he said, I don't think so. And I said, I know so. So listen, if I win, I'm going to take this $500 and I'm going to use it to buy a round of drinks for everyone in the bar. And now everyone's like, yay, we can't lose. So now they're on my team. He says, he's looking at his cards. He says, I think I've got you beat. And I said, yeah? And he goes, 2 queens. And he throws it down. Now, if you've played stud poker, 2 queens in stud 5-card poker is a very, very good hand. It's a really great hand. And he puts them down. And I stand there for a second. It's quiet. And I stand there for a second. And I go, that is a good hand. And now, you know, free hands, I move my drink off of my cards and I go ace, 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 ace. And it's dead silent for a good 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And then it's like a bomb went off in the room. Applause, people cheering. I'm walking down the bar. I'm high-fiving everybody. And it really was one of the few times in my life as a magician that I felt like I got to see a miracle happen with the audience, right? It was like this whole, you couldn't have scripted. If you made this a movie, it would be not believable. You could not have scripted it like this. So I walk over. Doug was the guy's name, by the way. I'll never forget it. Doug, big belt buckle, cowboy hat, duster coat. And I held my hand out to shake his hand. And he shook my hand, and then he turned around and he didn't walk back to his friends. He walked out of the bar into the snow, and I never saw him again. That's a true story. So thinking about that, like to me, that is, I'll never top that with any trick I ever do, probably ever, ever, ever in my life. But there are lessons there if you want to present miracles to people. And if you want to produce 4 aces, to me, part of it is this idea. After that happened, I thought about this a lot, and I wanted to kind of recreate that. Although I can't hire a guy in a cowboy outfit to come up and bet me a poker bet. But I used to think about, could I possibly get people to request 4 aces instead of me saying, watch me cut to 4 aces? Could I get, so a bunch of things have to happen to make this a miracle in my mind. The first one is I'm going to start with the cards set up just like we talked about. 3 aces underneath this top ace, and we're set up. And if I do that production, they'll go, oh, pretty, really impossible. Don't know how he did it. But don't know how he did it is different than that's not possible. And I'm always after the second thing. That's not possible, right? Thank you, Simon Aronson, for that little piece of wisdom. So the first thing is we have to have the deck shuffled. Well, I have no problem with sleight of hand and with palming and stuff. And some of you may not feel comfortable palming cards. I don't normally perform seated like this. I would normally be standing, but I can give you a couple of pointers if you want to palm cards and not feel guilty and not get caught. So first of all, this is the Larry Jennings palm of a group of cards. I don't want to explain it, but it's just a way of palming a batch of cards off the top of the deck that has a really soft look to it, and you can control exactly how many. And you can go look that up, okay? So I'm now palming all 4 aces, the 3 face up and the 1 face down here. And when I hand the deck of cards out to the audience member, what matters most is that this hand not look like a claw coming away from the deck, right? So if I was here, if I was sitting like this, like I am, if I were actually in the position I really am, which makes no sense, I would simply drop my hand down to the edge of the table this way. Or honestly, truthfully, I have no problem dropping my hand into my lap and just having it out of sight. And we can talk about that in just a second. And this hand gets handed out. And this hand, excuse me, this deck gets handed out. And when this hand comes back, they see this hand empty. So when you're standing, what matters most here is symmetry of your hands. I heard David mention symmetry when he was talking. Symmetry is so important. It's one of my pet peeves in Magic when you see someone holding an item like this, right? Like, what is in this hand that this hand is all splayed open and this hand is like closed, right? It either has to be both hands closed or both hands open. This sucks, right? This is foundational Magic lessons that we all should get, but we don't anymore because we don't read the foundational books. Anyway, symmetry is what matters at this moment. So I'm palming these cards. I hand the deck out to someone to shuffle. And when this hand comes back, they see it empty. And then when it drops, both hands swing, and I make this hand match this hand, right? If this hand would normally be with fingers spread, I just close my fingers so that they look the same. No fish hook, right? Inside like this. And then both hands swing. And when both hands are the same, all of us have experienced human behavior our whole lives. So when both hands are the same, we think both hands are the same. I just saw this empty hand, both hands same, and there's just no suspicion, right? You don't need to feel guilty or worry about palming, because if they see an empty hand and then they realize subconsciously both hands are the same, they don't suspect that you're doing anything. And so there's no reason to prove anything. You just hang out with those palmed cards. And you need to palm cards enough that you don't have to really think about what you're doing, so that your attention is not on this hand, right? That's how you get caught. You get caught doing sleight of hand when you are thinking about sleight of hand while you're doing it. You need to practice enough and be comfortable enough that while you're doing sleight of hand, it's on autopilot and you are performing instead of doing sleight of hand, right? The example, the analogy I use, all of us who drive a lot, and especially those of us who have ever learned to drive standard transmission cars, you drive from A to B, coming home from work or whatever, and you have shifted gears and changed lanes, and you haven't actually paid attention to any of it. That is the kind of familiarity and comfort you want to have with your sleight of hand, where when I palm those cards off and hand them out and my hands do symmetry and I'm palming them, I am not thinking about that. My hand is just hanging there. And I'm talking to the people and blah, blah, and I might gesture with this empty hand, or I might give a both hand gesture because that's symmetry, right? This is how the kinds of things we have to practice to not get caught. I wish you could talk to me so I could understand if I'm being heard and that everything is okay. So now, when the deck comes back, I have to replace them, right? And Vernon taught us this, right? We don't want to slap our hand on the cards. You want to place the cards in a way that looks like a natural action. So instead of coming from the back to put these cards back, notice this fish hook and this coming from the back. This looks like you're putting something on the deck. What you do is you take the deck back and then pause for a second before this hand comes up. And now on a moment of misdirection, this hand comes to the front, which gives your thumb a reason to fish hook out and come to the back. And that replacement happens very just like this, right? And now you've replaced it. And immediately I spread the cards out to the person that just shuffled them and I say, take a look. Do they look mixed to you? And of course they do. They look mixed to them. And then I set them down and I say, I don't want to touch them or change the order or do anything. In fact, they're just going to sit there. You shuffle and I don't even touch them. Now that language is important because I did in fact replace the aces and spread them out and set them down, but I want us to remember that I didn't touch them. So I say it twice. I'm not going to touch these cards, right? You shuffled them and I set them and I'm not going to touch these cards, right? So later on when asked, yeah, but he didn't even touch them, okay? So now the deck is set. And if I wanted to, I could produce 4 aces and we are very close to a miracle. But I want that one last thing, which is to get someone else to ask for aces. So I say, I can, believe it or not, I can have any card in a deck of cards named, and I can make it appear on top of the deck. In fact, and now I'm looking for a specific kind of person. I'm looking for a youngish man, maybe 25 to 40, somewhere in that range. And I say to him, I'm looking for him, good if he's clean cut, kind of a bro looking dude. I don't mean to be, it's not a pejorative. I'm looking for a particular type. What I'm looking for really is someone who might play poker or know about poker, right? And there's, in my view, a certain look of those guys. If you watch a World Poker Tour and you watch all those tables, you're looking for one of those guys. So you pick out one of those guys and you say, are you a card player? Name any card, a good card. Right? And that a good card is just like a little tag on there. And I'm hoping he says an ace. And if he does, I'm in business, right? I'll tell you how I walk them to 4 aces in a second. But if he doesn't, if he names some other card, I go, great, 9 of diamonds. And over here, would you name a card as well? And I pick someone else and I'm hoping that person names an ace because then we'll work to narrow it down. But let's say it's a worst case scenario and I get 9 of diamonds, 4 of clubs. And I go, okay. I'm going, believe it or not, I'm going to make the 9 of diamonds and the 4 of clubs appear on top of the deck. Actually, those cards don't match very well. They're not very interesting or memorable cards. Could somebody call out a memorable card? And now to the whole audience, I'm waiting, I'm listening, and someone's going to say an ace or ace of spades. And I'm going to point to that person and say, what did you say? And I'm going to get ace of spades from them. Or if I don't hear any of that, I pick a non-existent person in the back and I go right back there. What was your card? Ace of spades. That's a great one because we can all remember that. So that's worst case scenario. I still get to, it seems to be a named card. But best case scenario, I point to my guy and I go, do you play cards? What's a good card? And he'll say ace of diamonds or ace spades. And I go, ace spades. And now here's a great tool that I learned from Tamari. When someone names a card, it's really good when you can invite them to change their mind, right? But in some cases, you don't want them to change their mind. You want them to stay with their first choice. When that's the case, you can make them stay with their first choice and ask them if they want to change their mind by doing this. You make it seem like you want them to change to a specific card. So if someone says ace of diamonds, and I go, ace of diamonds, that's a good card. Are you sure you don't want 5 of hearts? 5 of hearts is a good card. And now they feel like they're being pressed. Five of hearts is random to them. And they're like, no, I don't like that one. And they will now double down on ace of diamonds. And once they've done that, now you can say four of clubs, six of diamonds, five of hearts, no other card you want. And they'll say ace of diamonds, and they will stick with it forever, right? This is a great tool to have. So now I've gotten them to name, or I've gotten to an ace being the selected card. And then I say, you know what? Instead of just producing that ace, let's make it 4 times as amazing. I'm going to try to make all 4 aces appear from a shuffled deck of cards that I have not touched. And you said ace, and we'll try and do all 4. And my hand's empty. And now this, pow. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4. And I promise you, this is way better than cutting the aces or making fans make them appear on the top. This is a 3 minutes of a buildup to a single instant of magic. And when you land this, it has an impact that I can't really describe to you. It's almost as good as hiring a dude to dress in a cowboy duster and come up and ask for 4 aces. There's a lot more to talk about here, but I'm out of time. And I did bring and invite a guest to come in and share a little bit with me. Could we get Chris Korn to step in? Hello, Chris. You're muted.
There we go.
Hey, Chris.
Hello. Hey, good, good, good. Thank you for the invite. And yeah, there's a lot of material that I saw at the tower that really inspired me as well. And seeing, working that amount of time, and I came up with this routine specifically for the tower, part of it, and it's based on a Steranko idea. Oh, by the way, just to keep in flow with everyone else, this is Ziggy. Can you see Ziggy? Ziggy likes coins as well.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
We are running up against time, but Derek Delgadio
I'll keep this.
No. Derek Delgadio kindly said, take as much of my time as you need. So we're going to run. I'm giving David Williamson a warning. We're going to run about 15 past.
Perfect. Then we'll take a little break, a little 5-minute break, and bring Derek on.
That sounds great. Okay.
All right. So there was a routine by a Steranko voodoo card that I loved. And 25, 30 years ago, Guy Hollingworth showed me this before he'd put it in print. And I remember looking down and looking up and go, what do you want for it? I knew in that moment, right? It was so good and so powerful. You don't know the routine. Basically, what happens to one card happens to its mate in the deck. So
this is the voodoo card. Steranko's
voodoo card. Yeah, voodoo card. So I took that sort of concept that Guy created, which was, to me, it was a miracle alone. I just had to find the right way for it to fit me or my voice. So I took that, and then I did this at the tower many times. And every time I go back to the tower, what I love is I would always have new material, or it would give me a boost or a reason to develop something new, right? To kind of trade ideas or, fool your peers. And I combined something which I'd seen Bob Sheets do, Eric Mead, and many others, which is a Heba Haba El sugar cube trick. Now, that trick didn't fit me. Now, I tried it many times, but it just, for whatever reason, just like a magic square, doesn't work for me. It doesn't fit me no matter what version I try. I can't sell that trick. But voodoo card I loved. And for those of you that don't know, it's like the spectator picks a card, and whatever happens to that card happens to the mate. So they hold the card, they turn it face up. Right now, the mate is face up, and now they tear a corner off, and now a corner is torn off the mate, and you burn, right? You burn a card like this, right? Like this, right? You burn one card, and the card in their hand is burned as well. So I wanted to make the trick bigger. And to me, it's all about risk. So the idea was to combine 2 ideas and taking the risk, knowing that it was going to fail and being okay with that. So what happens is I took the trick from the table, right? So it's happening. And it's the thing I love about Guy Hollingworth's version is it almost is not a card trick at the end. They really feel something different happening because my clients always mention this, like, can you do that voodoo thing? So I took it from here and I want to push it out here. So I bought some makeup, and so I combined the sugar cube. And if you don't know that trick, that's where you're transferring from a sugar cube an initial to people's hands, so even their forehead, you tap them, whatever. And it just, it just sort of, it spreads out through the crowd.
Let me clarify that. Can I just, the sugar trick, you write a letter on top of an actual sugar cube and drop it in a glass of water, and a person puts their hands on it like this. And when they take their hands away, that letter is actually printed on their palm. And then this is the Heba Haba version. They close their hand and blow on it, and now it's on the back of their hand. And then they touch the thumbs together, and it's on the back of their other hand, and they blow on it, and now it's on both sides of both hands. But then they put their hands on the people sitting next to them, and suddenly the people next to them have it on their hands. It's like a virus, although that's not a fun word to say anymore. But it's like it starts to spread, and it goes to 4 or 5 people and then onto some guy's forehead. And it's like this magic trick happens, and it's amazing. It's more amazing. It's more amazing. And then suddenly it's out in the audience, right? And this is what Chris is describing him applying to his card trick. Okay, go.
Yes. Thank you, translator. So the risk, it was that it was taking the risk to do this and figuring out. So I bought some eyeshadow, women's eyeshadow. And, before the show, I would go out and tap different people, right? I'd hit the back of their hand as I passed them, or if their shirt was rolled up in a position where they couldn't see the ash or something. So the idea is at the end of the trick, I go, well, when I start the voodoo card, I say, we started doing a card trick, but I said we would use cards so we'd be safe. But what if I loathed you? What if I hated you? And I make it kind of a dark thing. And I'm holding that flame under, which makes people a little bit nervous. And I go, and now I have a mark on my hand, like the ashes trick, right? And I go, but not just you. What if it was you? And I point to someone and they look at their hand like, oh, and now that person might be sitting right up front, but now the next person is 10 feet away, and the next person is maybe 15, 20 feet away. So it does spread that way. So it goes from here. And one of the things that happened at the tower, one of the first few times I tried it there, was a woman ran into the wall because I was so far away and it seemed so impossible. So I took a really great trick that I think is a miracle already and just tried to elevate it by taking that risk and combining these two ideas together. One of the things I did learn, I'll tell you this, is that I used really cheap makeup at first. And so I stained a woman's satin shirt at one time, and I had to pay $300 to replace that shirt. So I learned to buy MAC makeup, which is easily removable. But for me, it's finding something and making it your own, but then what is possible, and dream outside of what you consider a classic, or, what could possibly happen in this trick, and start, writing those ideas down and develop them from there. For me, it's just incredible. And it gives my audience, it's something that even if they've seen other magicians do voodoo card, it doesn't matter because it's a whole different feel. So yeah, that's really what I have on that. And thank you for inviting me. But it's taking a simple thing and making it your own, and then finding a way to make it bigger.
Thank you, brother.
Yes.
I think sort of the theme of this and what we are suggesting is that all of us have tricks that we like and that we do, and that are various levels of impossible. But personally, for me, and I think for most of the magicians I love the most, the exercise is to take everything and try to figure out how to make it maximally impossible. How do I raise the level of impossibility in all of my material to the point where there are no tricks that are just interesting or that are just fillers? Like every single trick should feel like, to me, should feel like that's not possible. And I wouldn't tell anyone else what they need to do, right? I don't like advice in that way, but it's just how I approach it and what has worked for me. And maybe that would be interesting for you. So David, we're not going to go to about quarter after. We're going to go till 2 minutes after. And thank you all. Oh, wait, do you have any questions, David? You could like look at I can't see the Q&A from my monitor's a little far back and it's like a little tiny.
Let's see. How do you recommend people rework their own routines to make them reach closer status?
Right. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about. You take some routine that you love, whatever material speaks to you that you love, and it can be anything, you know, and then think about and just sort of you dream of if I were really magic and this weren't a trick that I was constrained by methods, what would it look like and what would I do to expand it or to make it more impossible, right? One of the things that I do, and I talk about this a lot with privately with other magicians, when I'm learning a new piece or working on a new piece, I practice it for a while without the actual props, right? And I use as an example of this the trick three fly. When I first heard about three fly in the 1980s, but I had no idea what the method was. It was just described to me by a friend of mine who had gone to a convention in the Midwest, and he came back to Colorado and he said, there's a group of magicians really doing some interesting coin magic where it's not hidden in their hands, but the magic is happening visibly at their fingertips. And I heard about this trick where there were three coins visibly, hand here and fingertips here. And as they waved their hands up and down, the coins were jumping between their hands. And when I first started thinking about it and trying to envision how it might work and what I might do with it, without any coins at all, I spent a couple of days just picturing in my head, what would it look like if I had three coins and nothing? And would I shake my hands and it would, or would I hold my hands perfectly still and they would pop? Or would I wave my hands up and down and in that blur, they would jump? And I was not concerned about the method to this at all. I was trying to feel and to understand what it would be like if I could really, if this were magic and I could hold the coins there and I could do this. And I sort of landed on this, you know, if there were a little blur to it, but there were no finger motions and it just happened with your hands, this, before I ever started touching the coins, right? This was in my head. What was magic was already in my head. And I sort of approach most of my magic like that, right? Thinking about if the method weren't in the way, what would it look like if it were a real impossible thing happening? And I examine all of my material like that. And then the understanding that nothing is ever finished, ever, ever, ever. And my best trick that I've been doing for 30 years that I know is a miracle, I'm still looking at it and going, is there a way I could make this better? Is there a way I could tweak that? Is that not the best move there? And to feel
Related question. What questions do you ask yourself to recreate a routine as your own?
I'll say that again.
What questions do you ask yourself to recreate a routine as your own?
Right. Well, this is a totally separate question, which I think has to do with, for me, no trick can go in front of an audience as a performance piece until I know what it's about. Like, what is it that I'm trying to say? Like, I love this trick, right? I love this trick and I've worked on it forever and I know it will fool people and it feels really magical, but I don't know what it is that I'm trying to say by performing this. What is this trick about? What am I doing? Like, what are they supposed to feel from me? And that is sort of, I was talking to Derek. Oh, he might talk about this in his talk, or maybe not, because he told me to change everything. But Derek Delgadio and I were having a phone conversation just 3 nights ago about what we were going to talk about here. And one of the things we were laughing about is when you work on magic and practice it to the point where you can really do the trick and the trick is really fooling and your technique is solid and all the misdirection is in place, and now you have this trick that you can do and it will fool people. For Derek, for me, I think for everyone on this panel, for most magicians that I admire, that's actually the starting line. It's not done. You've just arrived at the place where you begin doing the work of what this trick is about, right? What am I going to do with this? How am I going to use this to say something to people? I'm sorry, I'm very animated, and I just realized that I have a camera, so it probably feels like you're getting seasick. But yes, what is it about is always the question that I'm asking myself. Another way of asking that same question is, why should someone care, right? I'm going to make the 4 aces appear on top of the deck. And they'll be impressed and they'll be fooled and they'll like it and they'll clap. But what is this about, right? And in the case of that trick in my own show, it doesn't stand alone. We are going somewhere. That is a step in the direction of somewhere we are going. So that particular piece doesn't have to have its own theme and be about its own thing. But I think making a trick your own is to decide what it is that you are doing, what it is that you are trying to communicate to an audience with the performance of that piece. Is that a fair answer in this context?
That's
Sure.
yeah, that's a lot of bull. That's good.
Okay.
Hey,
Eric.
Yes.
Young Shoji asks how to transition tricks from close up to stage.
Yeah, well, first of all, we have to decide that if we're going to be on stage, I think you can't just do close-up magic, right? Matt King said earlier that he's doing a close-up show on stage, but that's not entirely true. Like, those tricks are visible for 300 people mostly. I know that we've all heard the great story of in vaudeville, Jarrow closing with the penny and dime. Was it Jarrow that closed with the penny and dime? And I love that. And there is a lesson there about being able to do some magic on stage where the interaction is the show and where the reaction of the person is the show. But I feel like if you're doing an hour of that kind of magic, you are shortchanging the audience in a way that's not fair, because there has to be some visual magic if it's a magic show. So transitioning close-up material to stage really is mostly choosing close-up material that can be seen at least to a large extent by an audience in whatever venue you're going to do, right? There are several close-up magicians I know who do great stand-up shows with mostly close-up magic, but there's a lot of sort of visual magic that happens along the way. And I don't think you can just do, it's certainly not like tabletop magic as a whole show of stage magic. You do have to choose.
That's a huge topic, and I'm sure, maybe during our panel discussion, I'd love to get bite into that.
Because I think everyone on this panel is mostly a close-up magician who also does stage. I think. Is that true? Except for Matt.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Let me take 2 more questions and then it's break time.
I think we're kind of done.
Oh, let me take no more questions and just say, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for donating to this cause and for spending time with me and with us. This was one of those situations I joke about sometimes where it's just, when Jason called me and he explained the situation, it was really, I'm happy. I think it's a great cause, and I'm happy to donate my time and my effort to this cause. But among friends like this group of people and our magic community at large, the cause is a great cause, but the cause almost doesn't matter when a friend in need says something in our community. There's a certain group of friends of mine, Delgadio among them, who always say, whose car are we going to take? And I'll leave that as a problem to the attendees to see what that actually means. It's from a film. And what it means is when a friend asks you a favor, sometimes it doesn't matter how big or how unpleasant the favor is, you simply say yes. And when Jason called me and explained all this, I was happy to be a part of it. But our community of magicians, one of the greatest things about it is that we can in fact rely on each other as friends to help in times of need. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And thank you all for donating your money and your time to be with us. Let's take a break.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yes.
Eric, and I don't know if people can see both of us right now, but I can see you, and I assume you can see me.
I see you. You're a tiny window. I'm still the big window.
Of course you are. That makes sense. It's same in my screen.
Okay.
We're actually not going to take a break.
Oh, we're gonna go right now?
Well, yeah, we're not going to take a break because it kind of is a good lead into a very good point, which is that just because you've done things a certain way for a while doesn't mean you have to keep doing it that way. And this is actually a really this is a thing Weber and I talk about all the time, and where we'll make something or get something to a certain point, and then literally ask ourselves, like, how can we break it? Like, what can we destroy? How can we undo everything we just did, and what would that look like? Which is, like, I found, as you I'm sure have, like, is a really valuable thing to do. Question the thing you've done and kind of figure out a new way. So when Willie said we were taking a break, I mean, no, we're not gonna take a break because you're right. I did have
Can I
a
just
thing.
say, ladies and gentlemen, here's Derek, and you go.
No, well, no, it's already happening, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to do anything. Because I did have a thing we talked about ideas and stuff, and like what the several ideas, and the idea of like the starting point. We thought that would be a good thing. But as I was watching this, I had a different idea, and then you fucking basically did it. And so you fucked me there too. So well
Well,
played.
Matt did his talk about character,
It's
which
fine.
was 10 minutes of what I had planned to talk about, but it's, it is what it is. There's an overlap of all of us, which is why we are this panel, I think.
Exactly. But you don't even need to leave. You can just stay here if you want. You can
You want
go
me to
if
have
you
a
want.
conversation? No,
But
I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to see you and like just have someone to at least talk to while I do this. And you can chime in because you'll have thoughts about all this. So when Jason popped up this morning, I had flashbacks of anytime I see his hands of just like I have a very specific memory of like his hands in my life, which was very, very early on. And he was the first guy to straight up show me a miracle. Like something that was beyond kind of what I knew, because I knew a little bit about magic when I met Jason. And everyone was like, you need to meet Jason, you need to meet Jason, because he was as you know, he was like the card expert.
And how old were you?
I was 13, 12 or 12 going into 13. And so I knew a little bit about Matt and Jason. Feel free to we can Brady Bunch this, like people can pop up, if I mention your name and you want to, and feel free, because I'm going to talk about you either way.
I'm listening.
Jason, I don't remember if we're at Old Chicago's or at Denny's, but it was a place where you end up, not a place you go. And we were going back and forth with stuff, and he was teaching me things, and then he borrowed my deck and did a McDonald's Aces routine with my deck. Borrowed the deck, did McDonald's Aces, gave my deck back to me, took everything to an entirely new dimension, because I thought I understood. I thought I understood like like I was behind the curtain, and instead like I just realized that there's like an endless succession of veils, and like Jason was like the first person to repuncture that after like the very first thing I saw, which was just in a magic shop. It's like, oh, well, now I know that there are secrets and I know how these things kind of the mechanics of these things. But when I saw Jason do that, and we became very close after that. And and the thing I was thinking about the first things that were coming to me as I was watching all of you guys. And because with the exception of Paul, and this is not a slag on Paul, he's just the only foreigner here. With the exception of Paul, the guys in this day are like the strands of my Magic DNA. Like quite like I can't really think of a group that has more of where I learned how to do what I do than the people here today. So it's really incredible. And like with Jason, there's the witch grip story, which has been told from my youth, but like that really came from Jason. Like I was just trying to keep up with him, and like you learn, you don't just learn one technique, you learn them all, and then you learn each subset of those techniques, and you find your way. You know, you find yourself, because just like one set technique or one way of doing it isn't necessarily, it's sometimes you do have the right tool for the right job, but that exploration, like Jason was the first person I saw that's like, why do you need 6 versions of a bottom deal? You don't need, no one needs 6 versions of a bottom deal. Nobody, who needs that? No one needs that. But for some reason, Jason needed that. And I was so young, I of course just thought that's what you do. You learn, you know, every single variation of every single thing you see. That's all from Jason. And and then when Matt came up, and he's probably not off work yet, but when Matt came up, I was thinking about I don't know how many years ago, someone might have even been there who was on this call, but years ago, the Ice House did a reunion of like their comedians. It was the 30th or 40th anniversary, and the Ice House is a comedy club in Pasadena, or near Pasadena, and they invited all their famous comedians back for this show, and it was so big. It was 2 days, and every comedian that's like on the wall that was still alive, they said, come back and do a set. You can do 7 minutes. And you know, Ray Romano was one of the people. All you know, it was just a really big set. Jay Leno was that. There were like the 3 huge guys headlining at the Pasadena Center, and then at the Ice House, they had all of their other famous comedians who have succeeded. And I went with some friends, and we all waited. That we watched the show. It was 3 hours long. And about the hour and a half mark, I started to get really nervous. I started to get like pit in my stomach nervous for Mac, because
Mac has to follow all of this.
Every single guy was a killer. I mean, you recognize every person, every woman or man on that stage was someone you saw, and so was Patton Oswalt or whoever. Absolute killers who had to do 7 minutes. 7 minutes, which is a comedy club. I mean, that's just like an impossible feat. But you have like the best comedians you've ever seen doing their best 7 minutes. And at the hour and a half mark, I'm like, this is terrifying. As someone who has done a bit of that in their past, and like knows that world, and knows as a magician backstage at a comedy club, that is, to me, is a very scary situation, even for the most, you know, even for Derek Hughes or for Eric or for the guys who really know comedy clubs. And I was like worried for Mac, and Caveney was there too, and he was worried too, because it was concerning how good everyone was, and Mac still hasn't gone up. And so then eventually they announced Mac, and he trots on stage, and he wasn't full Mac. He was only wearing his partials like which is jeans and a flannel jacket, not the full flannel suit. And so he was business casual, I guess, for him that day. So he hops on stage and he blows the roof off the place so hard that every single comedian after him had to mention him. It was stunning. It was cannot overstate how absolutely stunning it was and magical. And he got David Blaine-esque reactions at the end of it when he produced that bottle of beer, and it was stunning to watch. And like, it was such a lesson in like in doing magic without shame and doing magic without fear, and knowing that like magic can stand on any stage in the world if you've prepared for it and you've done your job. And like, I saw that from Mac, and it was absolutely stunning to see. Eric, you look like you had something to say.
Well, Mac is one of a kind in that world. And yes, I have seen him step onto stages that were terrifying to me to watch him step onto and kill. But I do know from personal experience that in the comedy club world of the 80s and early 90s, magicians were generally really looked down upon, because most of the magic acts in the comedy club world were not great magicians and not great comedians who had cobbled together some sort of a passable magic comedy act where they could do 25 or 40 minutes and make a living, but it was hacky and not great. And so often when I would show up to play a comedy club, and I was doing a lot of it in the late 80s, I was already, the audience was fine, but the other comics already just looked down on me. And it was amazing that after the first night or the second night, in almost all cases, the turnaround of, oh, you're not a schlockster or a hack, so you're like really good, because I wasn't a cobbled together bullshit act, right? But Mac is that to the nth degree. Mac is like a monster.
Well, and what you just said, and we talked about this the other day, in that I think it's important to mention here, is that like, Mac understands the marriage between comedy and magic and how those two things function together or don't function together. And even though he's very funny, he always knows that he's a magician. He never forgets what his job is.
Magic first, right?
Magic first. He does stunning magic and happens to also be funny.
You said it, but you kind of glossed over it. You said magic without shame, right? Where lots of magicians who are in situations like that feel like the magic part, I need to be better comedy, and I'm gonna lean on the magic to make my act work. No, magic first.
Yeah, magic.
And that's, I mean, Mac is a great magician.
He is.
And all that stuff, but those magic tricks are good fucking tricks.
But there's a correlation between comedy magic and, Jason, something that you and I have talked about a lot, which is gambling and magic. And the truth is like, because you hear people say like, you can't have a, not hear people say, I mean, you just did an amazing, I agree with you, like your talk of, and it's watching you, it's funny watching you like blaze through that, like you're on fast forward, because I've seen you talk about this thing and the whole thing lasts an hour and it's amazing. But like the idea of taking a thing from a trick to a demonstration of skill to magic, and that arc is that, I mean, that's, if that's the job, that's the job. And Jason, I know you and I both have struggled with the idea of how do you be a magician and also be in love with these things over here, which are in the same family, but but they might work against each other. And in my experience, and this is the same thing as what you're saying about Mac and what you do, Eric, of like, the two can live together in harmony, but it's like a song. You know, the whole thing is an experience happening in time, and you just like, where do you place these beats, and why are you placing them there? You can do just about anything you want as long as you space it out properly, put time between them. For instance, Jason, I know you I mean, I come from your school of like being able to combine the two and not really seeing the problem with like doing a gambling act of some, or some sort of gambling demonstration showing you have skill, and then also doing something that's very magical. And I think we both felt that from Ricky, who did it better than anyone in terms of being able to have that marriage of the two live together and not detract from one another. But you've thought about that more than anyone. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that first of all, I absolutely believe they can be mixed, but I don't know that everyone can mix them. So I've heard of, you know, you search through a magic forum online, and you'll see people say that any overt sleight of hand is detrimental to the show, or is detrimental to you know, to the magical experience. And I go, well, hang on a second. Tell me some of your favorite magic shows ever. And the first thing, one of the first ones out of their mouth is 52 Assistants. And I'm like, yeah, it's great. You know, there's a gambling set right in the middle of that show, right? So clearly that didn't hurt the overall experience. And then I would talk about Nothing to Hide. I would say, you know, this unbelievably popular show didn't put it in the middle somewhere, but started with a back and forth tour de force of obviously sleight of hand. You know, they weren't necessarily on display, but you know, you guys going back and forth controlling those cards, unbelievable.
Well,
and then in and of itself, right in the middle of a show that had at least two moments where I felt like I'd been punched in the gut by a magic experience. There's a gambling set right in the middle of it, you know, so obviously they can be mixed and the whole is not harmed. But I do think you got to be careful doing it.
It has to be really thoughtfully done. It has to be really thoughtfully done.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, and to that point, like thoughtfully done is like the impulse for me at the time, back in like Nothing to Hide, was submission. Like I wanted them to know as early as possible to give up. Just don't bother thinking you're gonna outwit this thing and be able to you're just going to be out. It's a show of it's North Korea having the parades with all the missiles and marches and stuff. It's just a total pageantry of a show of strength, so that you put you off balance a little bit. Because if you show them something, first of all, people love virtuosity. It's rare in this world, and to see something done that they perceive as difficult, and to see it done beautifully is an extraordinary thing. It's why the juggler always wins on the cruise ships. You know, it's just to see something done that well is special, and to be aware of that specialness is nice, because so often in magic you're seeing something extraordinary and have no idea that you're seeing it. And so there is that balance of wanting them to know. But Eric, I think you transmit that better than any person I've ever met, in terms of like what you're seeing here is a miracle. I had the thought when you finished your ace thing, I thought it's true. Eric can take a shitty trick and get a better reaction from it than you can with a great trick. That's Eric's superpower. And he's able to, because he's
that ace production is a shitty trick.
Well, you're a student of Tamariz. You're able to take things that, you know, maybe in other hands doesn't go so well, you know, and it's just perceived as just a silly card trick, but put it in Juan's hands, put it in your hands, and you're able to find the magic in it. Where is the magic in this thing? Where's the magic oriented in this object or this thing and what we're doing with it? And you're able to find that, and then all focus go. I had this in order. I'm not even going to bother putting in order, but I had order of like all the people, because I've said that I have notes on everyone here. I've been compromat and everything. I've been putting a list together. But Eric, what I was going to say about you was do you remember your tornado of
It's
that you describe your tornado?
Tasmanian devil.
What's that?
Tasmanian devil.
The Tasmanian devil. Oh, okay. So when I heard it, so you can I describe it and then you can
Yes.
elaborate on it?
No, I'd love to hear what you think I said.
Okay, so I was very fortunate in that when I was like 14 years old, started to go up to the Tower Bar every summer and hang out with my buddy Eric and just get to watch him work, and then get to sometimes be shoved behind the bar and forced to do things. Um, and and Eric, I don't remember why this came up, but you just, the way Eric works is so magical in the sense that there's a crowd and he whips this crowd into a frenzy and gets them laughing and has a good time, and he's leaving his what you would think is a script, leaving the show. We're clearly taking these departures from the set events and now talking about other things, and then he'll bring it back to the subject and then move away from it again and then do the trick, and everyone reacts and it's a miracle. And it's kind of baffling to watch because it's so it seems so loose, it seems so effortless, and yet somehow all of the focus is where it's supposed to be when it's supposed to be there. And I don't remember the question I asked, but it was something that had to do with that. And he described an amazing analogy of how he sees his act, and he described it in this whirlwind effect. And I heard it as a tornado. You may have reduced it to being a Tasmanian devil, but it's the idea of this chaos and this kind of whimsical nature of things, and letting the flow of the room kind of take us to where we are trying to go, and it's a steering of the ship, but allowing the winds to also take us. But when it comes to the magic, that funnel, that tornado that's spinning around the room slowly tightens, and it tightens and tightens, and it points to whatever it is that we need to look at to engage with, to understand, to set the conditions for the miracle that he's trying to take us to. And so he has fun, he asks questions, he talks to people, he lets them participate, he tells stories. But when it comes time to you knowing that there's 3 coins in this hand and no coins in this hand, everything stops and we start to focus again. And he makes sure that you register that information. And once he knows that you've registered that information, he moves on again and allows it to become kind of what it wants to be, and carry us through the night. And when you described that to me, it was just such an amazing metaphor for how you do what you do. Did I get it?
You got it exactly.
All right, moving on, Williamson. And
It's
so
flying it's flying an airplane through the hurricane.
yeah,
Right? It's all chaos, chaos, chaos. And it's talking to people and making jokes and laughing and letting the show loosely be just us being together. But when it comes time to experience a magic trick, we have to get to the eye of the hurricane where it's calm. Right? At the moment of magic, we can't have distractions. We have to do magic. And this has to happen. And now we have this experience of magic. Oh, and then we fly back out into the mess. And so I used to think of it as like the Tasmanian devil who would be spinning, 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 and then suddenly it would stop. And you would see the illustration of him like clearly, like there he is. Oh, there he is. And then he would go again. And that's sort of how I saw, especially at the tower where I was filling time but doing magic. That's how I really saw that, was like I
Yeah.
would be whatever is going to be tonight, and it would be different every single night, several times a night. But at the moments of magic, I really needed to control everyone's attention to like pay attention to this so that we have our experience of magic, and then it can go into whatever
Yeah.
it's going to go into, right?
This is
Not-
important. This is super. However one gets to their understanding of like taking someone from A to B, whether it's within just one trick or within the context of an entire show, that's something that doesn't seem to be translating. Like a lot. We've talked about we've seen magicians before, and I know that all of us have talked about this. And Willie, I know you probably have thoughts on this too.
We're going to have a panel discussion in a little bit, but let's sort of set up some things for that.
I'm the captain now. So yeah, no, comedy and magic, monologues and magic, whatever, bullshit and magic, whatever the two things you're trying to put with it. We've seen a lot of magicians putting in humor into their acts that has nothing to do with with what they're doing, right? And like what the effect should be, and a lot of jokes for the sake of jokes, and you don't do that. You don't do that at all, and there's a discipline to it because it requires often killing the thing that you really care about, really taking the thing that works. And a laugh is a perfect example of that, because and this is why I think, and obviously Willie's the one of the people to talk about this, but like when you have there's a similar idea, but again, this isn't just about comedy itself. Like what's the job, and how do you do it? It's kind of the overarching question. And is there anything that's making the job less effective? And in and of itself, there's a moment when I do a thing with a paper label. I turn it into a I don't know if you've seen the show. I turn it into a boat, and then I put it into a bottle, and then I put that bottle up on a pedestal, which then becomes sand. And I was doing it, and there's a chair and a shadow involved, and I was doing it for a while, and one day while doing it, I realized I put the ship in the bottle, and my next move is from stage right up to up stage, or from stage right to upstage left, and on the way I pick up a chair and move it back to the table because it's on my way. And one day on stage, I put the ship in the bottle, and I look at it, and I have a conversation with myself, which is, are you about to move that chair? Yeah. Why are you about to move that chair? And the answer was, because the magician in me desperately wanted to show the backside of it, because I knew that people are probably going to think like, oh, I bet there's like a thing that goes on the back, and I wanted to
font or something.
Yeah, and I wanted to show the other hand empty. I went, nope, not there. And the only way to do that in a natural way was to do it on the cross. Well, in that moment of magic, there's a choice between staying within the magic of the moment and the magic of the effect, and picking up a chair, like doing some stagecraft, some blocking, showing the other hand empty. And that question is the same question of, does this joke belong here? Does this moment belong here? Why am I doing it? And getting a laugh is an answer. But what is that doing to the job? Like how is that affecting the job? And Williamson, I mean, you already said he is the most gifted sleight of hand artist.
You could skip me and go right to Weber.
Alive. I'm not going to compliment you, Williamson, because I know
Oh,
you don't like compliments, and there's really not much that we could say.
I'll compliment him.
Okay, yeah, no, we all will, and because the truth is,
Not
we
what
all
this is.
we know he's the best of us, but I also
Demonstrably untrue.
I understand why he doesn't want to take the you know, so heavy is the head that wears the crown, right, Willie? But he did I was lucky enough for him to be one of the guys in my life growing up, and I remember saying to him, "Here, you're gonna like this," and he goes, "You don't know that," and I was like, "Well, okay, I guess you're right," and and I don't know that that's true, and he goes, "You're always doing that. You're always saying like, oh, here, you might like this, or oh, this is cool. Check this out. Like, you don't know that. You don't like I'm like anything you show me." And he was right. But I may not have understood the lesson he was imparting if he didn't follow up by saying, "Don't ever let them see you coming." And I mean, regardless of how you spell that, it's good advice. But the way the way that he meant it, I believe, the way he intended it was don't don't wear it all on your sleeves, man. Don't let them know who you are all the way. Like don't tell them how they're going to feel before they feel it. Don't let them see you coming. Your job is to get in there and destroy them. And he did say that to me. He said your job is to destroy their brains. And so again, the theme that you'll notice, like with all of these guys, if you kind of peel back how the kind of the veneer of whatever there it is we're all doing, but like the core of it is like Williamson knows what the job is, which is to destroy them, to absolutely wreck them when it comes to magic. And so again, another guy reinforcing that, and such a great lesson in what you might think is humility too, because it's like you don't need to be, if you're doing something good, we'll know it. You don't need to tell me it's good. You don't need to preface it with this is neat. Let the work speak for itself, be confident in the work, but also not saying something, setting the bar low is part of the job. And I think that's like setting the bar low in terms of the external claims, how whatever, how the posturing of Eric, you have a lot to say on this, I'm sure. But setting the bar.
I have one thing to add right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Which is that I used to read Max Maven sort of scripts that I was working on for tricks, and they always had like these, my idea of what is it about, and I would always lean too heavily on it in the early going. And Max used to always say to me, "The ocean doesn't need to tell us how deep it is."
Great.
Which is his way of saying, you know what, they will feel from you and get from you what you are about without you having to explicitly like beat them over the head with it and try to tell them how important or how intellectual. The ocean doesn't need to tell you how deep it is.
Yeah, that's I mean, Willie didn't say that, but yeah, that's what he was
really meant.
I meant it. Yeah.
yeah. But no, that was actually a really I mean, first of all, it's jarring to hear one of your heroes say, you don't know that I'll like this. But
well, I used to say that a lot to people. They go, "You want to see something cool?" And I want to show you something cool, and I'll go, "I'll be the judge of that." And you're right. That was just to kind of go, "Don't tell me it's cool. If you want to show me something, show me something. Don't preface it."
But that's the genius of like, well, everything you do is that like you say it as a joke.
Yeah.
But you were, it was just you and me at the Broadmoor, in one of the many times you visited there, and like we were hanging out and in your hotel room. That was the night of the card on the ceiling. And you meant it, like, and you meant it in like a very generous way of like, it wasn't just, I don't think it's not just an opinion in our field. It's an opinion. That's an opinion in many fields, but I think, and you could perceive it as one. I choose not to. I choose to think that it's actually like Newtonian advice of let no more than you allow them to know, you know.
Exactly. I remember, like in the book, The Education of a Poker Player, he was
Yeah.
told by, he was a young, talented poker player, and he was told by an old timer. He said, don't gloat when you win and don't complain when you lose. And,
Mhm.
keep it under your hat. And, and that's kind of the way I approach those kind of moments when I want to show somebody something. But you're right. I do try to lower expectations, not expectations, but kind of lower their defenses. It's a status thing. If I come on like I'm the greatest magician in the world, I'll never reach that. I'll never prove that. Or this thing I'm about to show you is going to be awesome. For me, it's much better to come in under the radar and surprise the hell out of them.
Well, and also that advice isn't just about like, it's about it's about understanding expectations and where you want to dial in where you are and they are, and if, for instance, in and of itself, there's not a magical effect for 15 minutes or so. I mean, I don't know the exact time, but it's
I
there's a
remember.
lot. There's a lot before there's a thing, and then when there is a thing, it's a bloop. It's not a it's not a it's the opposite of show business advice of come out and hit them hard right from the beginning. It's like, no, I'm gonna lull them into a thing for a while and then give them a meh, and that's not that's intentional. It's intentional because it's training. It's you're everything you show the audience, everything you say to them will have some sort of impact on them, whether they want it to or not, and they will internalize something about the images and noises they're receiving. And if the one thing you could know from the beginning of in and of itself is this is not a normal magic show. This is not the thing you thought you were going to see. And I don't know what they thought it was going to be, but I wanted to be sure that there was a way of subverting their expectations long enough so that they, again, kind of like Nothing to Hide, give up, but give up in a different way. This way they give up in their expectations of what they think this thing is going to be, because it's like, if he's not doing, so I'm willing to become the villain a little bit and not give you the candy you want right away, to take you to a place you maybe didn't know you wanted to go. But you have to be willing to sacrifice the moments, or it's the comedy, or the whatever the thing, showing the back of the chair, the joke, the whatever that thing is, to find the balance of the thing you're trying to get after. And I was thinking about that with when Weber was talking. He was the hardest person to think of, like anything. Like I just kind of kept writing down question marks because like I was, which is perfect for Michael. And 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 one of the things that I was seeing things I haven't seen him do before, which is like, it's insane to think you could know someone for so long and so well and literally know that you're never going to see everything they know. You just know that that well will never be exhausted. And that's because, like, I think you know what, I guess that's all the guys. I kind of talked about everyone. Weber was the guy who he didn't teach me this. He taught me by example, just him existing in the world. I think because of him and Ricky, I know what the job is. I understand that it is about bringing where you're trying to take them, which is to a place of like absolute mystery, just total mystery. And where, you guys know as well as anyone, like Michael has always been committed to that, and he understands it, just like what the job is, like taking people to that place of absolute mystery. And I think a lot of that, like, and that's this whole crew today, even Paul, the things Paul, Paul has excellent taste in stuff over the years. He's shown me a lot of things that are you have to be someone who recognizes the value of the thing that we're doing. And Paul is definitely one of those people. But this whole crew, like, you understand what the mission is in terms of magic and like the feeling of magic. And I think that there's a lot of it's rare. It's a rare thing. It's a rare thing percentage wise, I think, in the community, because it's like, because even Mac, like Mac, when Mac did his 7 minutes at that ice house, seeing a Mac King show in 7 minutes, you realize the density of magic, how much magic energy of like just be absolute pummeling beaters are in that show he has, which is perfect. Seeing it all condensed to like the greatest hits in 7 minutes was just staggering. I mean, the dude's producing goldfish out of nowhere and beers that people are just naming or appearing. I mean, it was just baffling. And it was everyone on this call knows what the job is, and I think that that's like that's a rare thing these days, because
Hey,
the
Derek,
job.
are you able to take a question? I know you have things you want to talk about, but
Oh yeah, sure, David. Yeah, that's fine. Jesus.
oh man, okay. Remy Connor asked a question
Look,
in
if
an
you're not,
in an interview with AOL. I believe Frank Oz said that you wrote in and of itself, but everything was in all the wrong places on the idea originating. Oh, on the idea of hiring a director, how did the experience of working with him change your magic? And would you give an example of a change from the original script to the final performance?
God, Frank is such
That's
a
a lot.
dick. I don't know what he means by that, but yeah, he's right. I'm sure he's right. No, it's true. When I went to his house, when I went to his house to talk to him about it, I presented him what I thought would be the show, and it was everything that's in the show. But it was definitely pre uh pre-imagined. I had not storyboarded it a little bit. I'd storyboarded a little bit, and I'd thought about it and written some things. And Frank's not a normal example of a director. So any advice of like, go get yourself a director is not it's good. You should absolutely get someone else. You should get someone else who understands storytelling and theater and pacing and how things should feel and look. And yes, but that's not a a recipe, so to speak, because Frank is unusual, and I don't think it certainly wouldn't have been the same with a different director, but that's why I wanted Frank. But Frank doesn't imagine things, which is highly unusual. And he can, but he chooses not to. And the best example of that is I was in my studio and I had an idea. I was going to do this thing where I folded a label, put a shipping bottle, and then put it back on a pedestal. And it was a bottle on a pedestal, and at the end, it was going to be a shipping bottle. And then one day, I was like, you know, it would be neat is if I walked up to this, and then smashed the pedestal, and then it was sand, and there was a beach, and then the whole scene kind of changed. That would be really cool. And so the first person I saw was Glenn Kino, my buddy, the artist who I work with. And I told him, and he goes, yeah, that's really cool. I think that'd be really beautiful. And then I think I may have seen Weber and mentioned it to him, and he was like, yep, that's beautiful. That's great. That sounds really cool. And then I talked to Frank, and he was like, I don't know, I got to see it. And I was like, no, I'll have the bottle. I'll go back up to the pedestal. I'll go to set it down. And then before I do that, I'll smash the pedestal. So then it's sand, and the whole thing just kind of changes, look like a sunset. And he goes, yeah, I need to see it. I was like, no, I have a bottle. And I kind of understand. He goes, no, you know, sounds like it could work, but let's see it and maybe. I'm like, so I gotta learn how to make a sandcastle first before we even know if we want to do it. Yeah. Okay. And so we did. And I did exactly what I just explained. He watched it once and went, yeah, that's great. And so, so that's what working with Frank is like. And,
Oh,
the,
yeah.
and,
Yeah, you want to?
and, no, I mean, it was, I don't know anyone who, Sebastian Cleric has one of the greatest stories you'll ever hear. Ask him about me and Frank in silence and hear what he has to say about it. I don't know that he would have found someone who was willing to put up with him, and I'm pretty sure he would have a hard time. This is a two-way street, because he's not after entertainment, and he's not after a good show. He's after something else. He's after, real magic of a sort. And the only way to find that is to you can't intellectualize it. You got to go looking for it, and you got to find it, and you got to have direct you got to have direct contact with it. And the only way to do that is to like try things, play, experiment. And so all of the things that I had planned are in and of itself. But having someone to encourage a sense of play and a sense of exploration at the sake of literally everything else. I mean, which isn't always pleasant for everyone else because they have work to do and they want, there's time and money and all those things. But for Frank, the work comes first and everything else be damned. And that's one of the many things I love about him. So yeah, Frank has had a tremendous impact on me as an artist and certainly on that show. But I can't say that that experience is what I would use to advocate getting a director, although it worked out. But I do think that separately, I do think getting smart people around you to help you understand the thing you're trying to make is a really good idea. William, do you have other questions for me?
Yeah, you want another one?
Yeah. Oh, keep them coming, buddy.
Okay, buddy. What are some of your favorite audience member written endings in and of itself? Have any of their writings inspired you to develop a new show?
No, no, I wasn't fishing for material. Although I guess one could. No, it was the endings that was it the most inspiring, or what was Willie, what was the thing they said?
Hold on. It's what were some of your favorite audience member written endings?
Oh, favorite audience member. Oh, the Post-it note guy was pretty great, which is the guy who just went through and added commentary to everyone, and some good, a lot of negative, but that was great. Because that was one of the first ones that really broke free of the form of what it had become. Like he kind of, that person showed this can do more than what you guys think it should do. So that was cool. And then like the pop-up was amazing. There was a person who wrote a music that they composed music instead of writing things. They just composed music for all of it, which was great. There was an astrophysicist who wrote, he described the show in mathematics, which is just fantastic.
Where's that book now? Like in the other room, or?
Yeah, it's on a bookshelf. It's on a bookshelf. But yeah, there's some really amazing ones. Too many to count, but those are the ones that come to the top of my mind. And then the really great ones are the ones where they nail it, like and it would oh boy, that changed everything too. It was beautiful. When talk about, it's the equivalent of what Eric was saying about the guy with the bet and palming cards, is that like someone gets kicked out, they're told to imagine an ending and come back the next day. And there were a few times where people would say something along the lines of, Derek will bring us all together and reveal not only his own identity but ours, and we will understand more about ourselves, and then uh and then like we will find out that everything that we've been watching is just an illusion, and the set, you know, and the set disappears or something like that. Like they would say a version of the ending, and then it would happen. And boy, that those were good nights. Yeah, but that's being open to, and Willie, I would say, I know this is not a compliment. It's a, I don't have to preface all of these. It's a thing that I learned from you, and I am grateful that I had the chance to meet a human who was able to impart knowledge of that you have.
Thank you.
Anyways, it was um, you tell me about like chaos and magic, and how chaos can be. It's similar to what Eric is much more reined in a sense, but I got to see absolute chaos in your presence that never somehow you didn't allow it to, because one of the things
You mean the
magicians.
time I came out of the dressing room naked except for my socks
No,
and shoes?
No, I
before the-
think no, because I think magicians have not, they have they know who you are and they have the right impression of you, but what they don't understand is like when you work for Layman, you don't fuck around as much. Like you show them magic. You don't, you're fine never doing a trick for magicians as long as they had a great time sometimes. But with Layman, you know the job and you do it. And watching chaos and levity and all of all of that into the equation, and yet still somehow there's magic happening. It's it's an amazing thing, but you have to be able to, you have to have the courage to allow it to happen. And most people, not just in magic, the world, don't allow that sort of courage to enter the equation. That sort of just unknown, just we're gonna do a tightrope walk now together. And that's, when you allow that stuff in, it creates it allows for really amazing things to happen. So me having someone take a book and go write an ending is the same as, you know, name a card, and they happen to name the 9 of diamonds on the bottom. But how much freedom do you want to give them? And it's like a leap of faith. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't, and that's okay if that's not the point. But the book was definitely like me running with this idea of like how much chaos and entropic energy can you introduce to the equation and still have it feel like magic.
There's so many more questions, but I think I'm going to save them until the group discussion because I think a lot of people have some good wisdom. Can you hang around for that after a 10-minute break?
I like how I just talk about chaos and you immediately go to bureaucracy and taking breaks. This is fantastic.
Changed. I'm not the man I used to be.
Point. You've changed. Ohio's changed you. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
All
So
right.
wait, is that it? Are we done? Is that your end to that?
What's your final word?
Final word. Oh, there wasn't a final question. Just have a final word.
Yeah. Tell the people.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
There's things in today's world. Let's see. Tana's book club. Adam Rubin asked you if you had a gun to your head, what techniques are still in your bones? You answered all of them. Then you clarified to say the ones that matter to me. What are some of those and why?
The ones that matter. Oh, I think it goes back to the times with, I mean, to bring it all full circle, Jason, you know, like the things that'll never leave me are like, even if I don't practice them, like all the stuff that I was learning just for the love of learning it. That's the stuff. Yeah. That's the stuff that'll always be with me, even if I don't use it, because there's so much of me tied to those things, and so much of those things that are tied to me that they're inextricable from one another. And so I would just say it's that's why it's like probably a lot of different techniques, but it's all mostly centered around hardcore card, mostly gambling moves, I would say.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, man, for doing this.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks everyone for coming to this. It's a really, I mean, Jason and what Zach are have been doing with helping these dogs is really a beautiful thing, and it's nice to know that we're able to not just help you know, a family who ran into an unexpected thing, that it's actually going to help a lot of cool people out there who are really doing the Lord's work, and we're able to extend some helping hands to them too. So that's really lovely.
Thank you, Derek. I
Everybody, we're going to take
can't come
another
on
5
camera, but
minutes.
thank you.
Okay, guys.
Okay,
We'll be back in a minute.
We'll be back in 5.
Okay, great. Bye.
Back in 5.
Okay.
Good. Hi, buddy. I am. I'm so tired. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Oh my gosh, what is going on here? Hey, everybody. Let me fix my screen and I'll start bringing some of the other guys back in here. I guess I'm in control of this thing right now, unfortunately. Who do we have? We have Zach. Come on in. We have Derek. Let me see. I think I can, and Eric, Jason.
I'm here.
Paul Wilson had to go to bed. He was in Paris. He's got a plane to catch in a couple hours, so he sends his love, and he's out of here.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you tell me I can put my video on, Davey?
Yeah, hold on. Let me find you. Okay.
Same here, David. I can hear and talk, but no video button.
Do you have a video button now?
I think I did.
Yep. And Derek and Weber is here. Well, that was a great day, fellas, wasn't it?
Was. Hey, David, did you get Doc Eason's book into the auction?
No, there's no way of doing that. That was all done yesterday. And
Oh,
yeah, maybe figure something else out for that. We could do it
Yeah.
live
I would
now.
love to donate a book to the auction, a signed copy of his book. I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, no, it
because-
was really nice. It was, but I can't do it at this. It's more technical. It takes
Okay.
a lot of finagling.
What an
But thanks,
excellent
Doc.
way of talking.
Well, the auction's going to be over in 45 minutes, and we're at what do we got? We got a lot of good bids in there already, guys. Check the the poster
Where are
that
we at?
is at 550, and the casino protection book is at 450. Ricky J cards are at 550. Johnny Thompson at 50. They're all still bargains, even at these prices.
Now,
Ask Standard 275. That's a $450 $495
it's
value.
absolutely clear that if we're closing the auction at 8:45, a lot of people are waiting till 8:40 to like really start looking at it and making their moves.
Yeah,
But,
I would start doing it now because it's
I
going to
would
get.
too. Because
We
this
won't
is
determine the-
eBay and it's going to be your electronics. If you're further,
Yeah, we don't have that kind of technology. I'm doing this by hand, updating all these prices, trying to look at the spreadsheet. So we
And by
won't
the
know
way,
the
before
numbers
we
till
start-
tomorrow.
before we
When I
start
look
the
at who got in at the last second, because every bid is timed down to the second. So
Right. Before we start this final session, I just want to say that David Williamson has done great work in putting this all together electronically and hosting it on his Slight School website. And thank you, David, for all of your
Oh,
work.
my
Thank you,
pleasure.
David. Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
man,
thank you.
you have no
I'm
idea.
I'm glad I was around. I'm glad I had no work for the past week.
Well, look at all of us are
Okay.
free on a Saturday night.
Yeah, look at us all. Oh, big time magicians. Oh, big shots. We're all home.
I did a show. What's wrong with you big pussies?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You drove down the street and did- yeah, I see.
Thanks all. David, can I join the panel
Where are you?
in Los Angeles?
He's in a hot tub in Hollywood.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Sitting with Paul
I'm
Wilson.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry, buddy. There you are.
Yeah.
Where's Mike Close? Raise your hand. The actual Mike Close. Is he still here?
If he's still here, bring him
Chris, you're
in.
upside down. You know that, right?
I was
Yes. I
worried
do.
that it would be a little chaotic.
Oh, okay.
His picture is too.
Yeah, bring him in.
Is the best plan here to stay muted until I need to speak or to just have all our mics open and talk?
We'll have all the mics open and talk over each other, I think.
You
Yeah.
think so?
Oh, I
Okay.
see.
That's what we do normally.
Wait, what do
Yeah.
you mean?
Right?
That,
Yeah, but there's not normally 100 people listening to us.
It's true.
Now, do we have to watch Chris Korn walk around looking up his nose?
Oh,
Feeling-
well,
I mean,
I'm
why
trying to
did
take
he ask?
care of.
Why
I'm
did you
trying to
ask to
take
come
care
in
of
here if
this
this is what we're
one.
going to do? Oh,
We
This-
wanted to bring in a dog.
Yeah.
that I
Well,
accept. Okay,
Well, I abducted her just for a day, you know.
that's a
But I
problem.
was
How
going to
did Chris
offer her
get
as part of the
paid?
auction, but you know, very difficult.
There's some questions here. What is your favorite non-magic book to the group?
It's an interesting question.
Is it?
Does that mean just random non-magic or a magic use?
Why are you asking a question of a question? Or you want me to
No.
go find who that person was and get their address and write to them? I mean, you can't just answer a simple question,
Yes,
Jason.
no, I want to ask. I want
You
to
make everything
clarify-
difficult.
It's so,
clarify,
it
do
breaks
you
my
have
heart
a
that David
book
had to
that's
give up
useful
his
to
job as a
magicians,
career
non-magic
guidance
book, or
counselor.
just my favorite book. Too? Could no one hear me when I said that?
What'd you say?
I said I want to ask a clarifying question. Is it your favorite book ever? Like, or is it your
Are you
favorite
asking me or the
book
person who
that's
wrote the
useful
question
to a
yesterday?
magician? Jesus.
Answer. Make up your own version of the question in your head and then answer that.
I don't,
Does anybody have a favorite non-magic book? Does anybody read non-magic books? I know I don't.
I have tons of favorite magic books. Do you want a book that is useful to a magician or just a favorite book?
Favorite book?
In fiction, I'm a Quixote man, but you know what? I'll answer both questions. And then useful to a magician, I'm drawing a blank on the title of it. I'll look at it in a second. There's a book about improvising in music that is one of the most interesting books I've ever read that was helpful to me as a magician.
Wow.
There's a
the way,
I'll have to step away for just a second and come back with the title. It's been a couple of years since I read it.
have you read The Way of the Hand, Eric? That's not it, is it? The Way of the,
That's
It's
I
not
have a
it,
porno
but
book.
That's
I
a
have a
great book too. I love that book.
yeah.
I have an adult book entitled that. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, that's about piano improvisation. But
Which
it's really-
hand? Jason wants to know.
Yeah, Rosie, that,
There's a very good
What
book
book
by
is-
science.
are there any fiction books that made you laugh out loud? I'll tell you, my favorite book that I keep coming back to was The Confederacy of Dunces. For some reason, that book really made me laugh.
unbelievable. So good, yeah. The one that made me laugh the most, out loud the most is A Walk in the Woods, Bill
Walk
Bryson.
in the Woods, yes.
Is unbelievable.
I embarrassed myself on a flight overnight one time when I was reading Me Talk Pretty one day.
That's me too.
And I started
Big
laughing
Boy.
hard
Was it-
on the
was it
plane
Big Boy?
in the middle of the night that I woke up all the people and had to excuse myself to the bathroom because I could not stop laughing.
Were
Yeah.
you reading the short story Big Boy?
Yes, David Sedaris.
That's
Yeah.
what killed me on a plane out loud. People walking over saying, "All right,
I
what is
mean,
it?"
I was crying. I had to excuse myself to the bathroom.
You know what? We could just stop talking. I have that book right here,
Just
Why
read
don't you
it.
read a chapter?
and I'll just start reading it.
Yeah.
Open to
All-
page
all the,
82.
all the
We'll see.
Vanishing Ink scholarship kids turn.
So let me ask a kind of a leading question for this group, which is watching all of today's content, what do you think was maybe a theme or two that was threaded through it, even though all of it, we didn't actually decide in advance what we were going to talk about. But I feel like there were a couple of threads that were in all of our work. And does anyone
One
else?
thread was if you're over 50, you're bad at technology.
Yes, well, that was first and foremost. Boomer TV, which Paul
Yeah,
said
boomers.
made me laugh so hard.
Well, somebody put a comment in that said Boomer TV.
No, Paul Wilson said, "Welcome to Boomer TV," when we were
Oh my
doing rehearsal first thing this morning because no one could figure out how to change their name.
We still got 30 Mike Closes in the room.
I don't know.
Right, exactly. But honestly, I think there were some. I'll just start with what I think, and then we'll throw it to the panel. I think one of the themes of today was that simply not being satisfied with the work you're doing as it is, and always thinking that there is more to do and that nothing's ever finished, was, I think, in every single person's talk, a theme that emerged.
Yeah. Yeah. Even I, who only does the same show every fucking day.
Language.
I feel,
But that's not true.
no, but of course, no, I'm saying even I who do that, I'm still working on little things here and there, even though it might seem the same every, the basic structure is the same, but even that changes a little bit. Yeah, I mean, we're all working on stuff.
I noticed the theme for a lot of us. I don't know the answers to all of this, but Derek was saying that I was, one of the first people to do things a certain way for him, and that set him off on his course. But I noticed the theme of mentorship. I'm only like that because of the people that I ran across very early in my Magic career. I was shown great card magic, great technical card magic by three people, two of whom are no longer with us. A guy named Jim Surprise, who was a magician in Memphis, Tennessee.
I knew Jim.
Not his real name.
And that was his real name. He's an attorney. I got his business card sitting on my.
He was a policeman.
He was not a policeman. He was an attorney. Trust me. Attorney at law, Jim Surprise, attorney. It's written on the business card.
Did he have braces as an adult?
He might have. I don't remember that.
Because in Memphis, I saw a tape of him on a Saturday morning kids show. And while he's talking, one of the rubber bands flies out of his mouth and hits the little girl in the eye, and she won't stop crying during the sponge ball routine.
I think I've never seen it, but I think
it was like, surprise.
But he wasn't a cop. He was an attorney.
Okay.
But the other one was Richard Oakley, who ran a competing magic shop.
Now he had a wooden leg.
Shut up! No, he didn't.
Did it shoot off?
And the other guy who's still with us, but who sort of veered off into mentalism in a very powerful way, is John Riggs. So you guys know John Riggs as a mentalist. I knew him as the guy that was a card sleight of hand monster in Tennessee. And
he was also well known at video rental stores.
Yes, he was. That's a funny story. He started me down this road, and then I met Gary Plants at a very young age, and I saw, okay, Gary, who are the guys I should point to or I should look at? And he pointed to Steve Forte and Richard Turner, and he gave me a big long list of books that I should read. So for me, it was mentors. With Michael, it goes back to Ricky directly, to Charlie directly, to Vernon directly. And so I don't know who Max, I don't know if Mac would say he had mentors, but certainly he had people that, that.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, certainly Billy McComb, Jay Marshall,
yeah,
sweet to me growing up. I looked up to Roy Benson, but never met him or, saw him live or anything. But yeah,
whoever affected you, those people sort of shape and mold us.
Absolutely.
Into what we are today.
Yeah. I was lucky to have Mr. Lance Burton too. I mean, really,
you were contemporaries.
Well, but his thinking about magic really influenced I don't name another comedy magic act that has all those body loads and shit in their coat. I mean, I think living and working with a guy whose whole act is how to get stuff out of your coat secretly really influenced me. And the choreography of, his naturalness, he was miles ahead of me. And so he was like a mentor, even though he's 3 months younger than me.
That's amazing, Mac. I've never actually thought about that, but that is an insight that is amazing to me. Like, you really are doing like a stage FISM act as part of the comedy magic act.
So I noticed one of the questions in the Q&A we should probably stay away from, which is, can you please share some funny or embarrassing stories about each other?
Oh my,
No, no, no,
Pass.
no.
oh my.
I can embarrass everyone on the panel and they can embarrass me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, pass.
It's a zero-sum game.
I have a question. So Rick Rubin is a big time music producer. He's done Run DMC and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Tom Petty, and famously doesn't play any instruments, doesn't know anything about music or music theory.
Are you
Is there-
comparing yourself to Rick Rubin all of a
No,
sudden?
I'm asking,
Okay.
is there somebody in your lives who doesn't know, doesn't know shit about magic, who does have, I don't know what you want to call it, just such good taste that they've talked you down a certain path or talked you, down a different road? Just curious.
I wouldn't speak for Derek, but I think Frank Oz for him would be right in that line, right? Someone who's not a magician, doesn't know magic, but who really sort of shaped that thing.
Did you just say I'm not going to speak for Derek and then totally speak for me? I think
Nice, nice.
I was giving you
Good
the
call
open
out.
door to speak for yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, what Eric said.
Would you say
Yeah.
that Frank Oz is kind of that?
I would say this is Eric's embarrassing story.
Uh,
Eric, I don't buy that one because I mean Frank Oz has been in front of people a lot, and I think that has really,
oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean.
No,
Unlike Rick Rubin.
Max. No,
But he's not a magician. He doesn't
No,
understand
no,
magic
no.
technique.
Max, you're both right in the sense that yes, I hear you, Eric, but what Mac is saying is actually more true. It might be as true as he knows, or even more true, because one of the things I learned about Frank and what he and Jim Henson managed to pull off together is that they were like us in that they were like an whatever it takes band that they were magicians. I mean, they were hidden. The hiddenness of what they did speaks to what we do, and that they had to hide so much all the time. So Frank actually had a very he didn't realize how much he understood magic, but what he does, to Max's point, is so similar on so many levels of like bringing things to life and making things magical and hiding the seams of things and having them not see the man behind the curtain, quite literally in many cases. That is very much an unusual skill set, and they are willing to one of the things that most I think the thing that really divides like magicians from non-magicians, the main thing is they have no idea how much a time and effort and energy this stuff really takes. I mean, like when things are easy, that makes sense. Like, oh, it was just a fake thumb or whatever. But they have no idea how much actually goes into doing the job properly. And it's so nuanced and so detailed. And so you need everything to, there's engineering involved. There's the performance aspects. There's problems, like all of the things that we contend with. Frank has dealt with that for as long as anyone alive, and at the highest possible level. So he really understood that going the extra mile part that I think is part of, and Michael, you can testify, but like he loved that he met people as crazy as him. It was shocking to him that like he has encountered people that are willing to like I mean, the story of like them, I forget which one, I think is a bonfire scene in the Muppets where they had to like hide under a real fire for like 9 hours and pee into bottles and stuff on a movie set. And like because they were trapped down there was no way to go back. And so like they were really hardcore. I mean, doing David Blaine stunts and never getting credit for it except for what's on the other end, like that's the level of commitment that they were doing. And magicians are like that, or at least the good ones. They're willing to go the distance. And so I think that, to Mac's point, yes, Mac, I think you're right. He has not just a show business background, but he has knowledge of like the hidden business in a way that he was more suited for it. But I think that I think everyone here probably has influences of like to your question, Zach, of like the Rick Rubin-ness of it is like well, I'd say one of the things that binds these faces, as far as I know, is interests outside of magic. Like everyone here is deeply curious in a lot of different things, a lot of different subjects, and they really are inspired by art and inspired by culture, and allow that to seep into who they are, and then that is reflected through the work. And I think that,
Yep.
like, yep. Okay.
Not only, I mean, like my first performance coach was a barber, Charlie the Barber in Xenia, Ohio. I was 12 years old. I was the shoe shine boy. And I would sit there on my little shoe shine stand waiting for, and every Saturday he had a barber shop full of farmers waiting for their haircut. And he kept them entertained with jokes, stories, insults, flattery. I mean, it was nonstop. It was like having Bill Malone as your barber. People came there just to get away from their wives to be entertained by Charlie all day long. And he was the greatest. He was like a performance coach. His timing was perfect. His body language, everything. I just loved him. And he was my first performance coach, you know?
Thank you for that, David. Now go get your fucking shine box.
Yeah, you're like Underdog.
What's that?
Underdog, wasn't he a shoe shine boy?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I ruined
Mild mannered.
many a shoe.
Sweet positivity.
Nobody asked how often is the auction updating? It's up to date now. It's within 30 seconds to a minute, it'll be updating. So get your bids in. We're coming in on 10 minutes, and we're going to close that sucker
10
down.
minutes from closing that auction.
Oh, so close. Hey, quick comment, if I can.
No.
Oh, not today. Not today. You don't. Was talking about mentors. Sometimes I feel, when you pursue someone, the student sometimes pursues the mentor and vice versa. And you find someone who's really passionate about what you do, and they can see that in you, and therefore they mentor you, right? They have to see that sort of thing. I saw Billy the Mime lecture last week or 2 weeks ago, and he had something I thought was really interesting. He's like, you have to pick what the point of what you're trying to say come across first, and that he wrote out everything beginning to end before he stands in front of a mirror or videotapes it. He writes it out from beginning to end. What are you trying to convey? And sometimes that emotion changes. Like with the voodoo card, I was in an angry phase, whatever at first. I'm like, what if I loathed you and and that going through the audience wasn't, maybe always the best. And I found a better way to phrase it now. But I think, writing all that down and doing those things in order of what you've written keeps you in that area. Like, what do you want to convey? And usually you want them to feel magic. I want the person that's sitting at the front of the close-up table and the person sitting 50 feet back to feel the same thing. So that's how that whole turning a trick into a miracle thing started.
Hey, here, let's attack that question of how do you take close up and turn it and make it bigger into stage. Anybody want to talk about that, Mac or Eric or Michael?
There's everybody talks about the Amateur Magician's Handbook, the Henry Hay book, and he's got another book called Learn Magic too.
Yep.
That I had before I had Amateur Magician's Handbook. My grandpa, my mom's dad, Elwood, had that book at his house. And one of the things in there that sort of really changed, you can do a lot of tricks if like I said in my little talk earlier, if the person next to you makes those tricks bigger, somebody from the audience can make those tricks bigger by their reaction. But there was a thing in Learn Magic, just a line drawing, where it was how to pass a coin from one hand to another. And he said, you know, when you're just doing it close up, you go from here to here and you take this coin. And on stage, he had another drawing where he was putting a coin like this. And I'm like, oh, that's so that trick can be big, but it's just a coin vanish. But I mean, that makes it, you know, that's so nothing. And this is so something. And, I mean, I don't make any coins vanish because I agree with you, David, from what you were talking about earlier with the ball, you know, where you're just tossing shit around is way more effective, especially standing up, right? I mean,
Well, that little coin vanish you did during the handkerchief trick looked fantastic. The way the handkerchief would shake.
oh no,
when you
that
did
handkerchief makes it that jumping handkerchief. I mean, you know, it's like shit. That
It's
looks
so good.
fantastic. Yeah. So, and I've done that for, you know, larger crowds. That coin vanish, with that way, you know, that really makes it play bigger. But I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Matt,
making the props bigger too. I mean, I do a chop cup for, you know, 500 people, but it's a oatmeal tub, you know.
You know, Billy
Cardboard.
McComb said any good card trick is better with a jumbo deck, and everybody went, I don't know about that. I like my cards too much. But Steve Spill took him at his word, and he put together ambitious card, color changing deck, cutting the ace. He did it at the bar. Now people go, well, you bring out a jumbo deck, they're going to think it's a trick deck. I got news for you. You bring that deck out of your pocket, they already think you haven't lost anything. They already think it's a trick deck because it came out of your damn pocket. But anyway, he would bring out this jumbo deck and people go, what's this? They lean in. It's more interesting. And then you could do it for more people, you know? So I've been transferring a lot of good card tricks to jumbo cards for stage, and it works, you know?
you
Give us an example. What are you
The
doing
lot-
with big cards?
Vernon's variant, for example. It's the trick where everybody gets 4 cards and you say, follow me, turn the top card, put it on the bottom, do the next card on. I did it on a TV show years ago with jumbo cards and everybody in the audience followed along.
Where you
And,
teach the audience the
And then
umpty count.
now I do it with really
Was
jumbo
that on
cards.
the
I get it
British
on
White Rabbit
stage.
Show?
Huh?
I remember that. Was it on the British White Rabbit Show?
Yeah, it was on a British show, Best of Magic or something. But
That's right.
now I do it on stage and like the Illusionists and stuff and all these bigger shows. And we've turned it into a huge moment where the whole cast runs out and we throw confetti and give the guy flowers. And, you know, it's just become this whole kind of burlesque kind of thing. And it's my favorite thing to do in the show now. But you couldn't do it with little cards. Everything's so cozy. I tell you, you do card tricks for more than 50 people. And it just, whenever your hands come together on stage, it's just hard to watch. It's cozy. Everything's here.
Well, but so from the mentalism standpoint, one of the things that that I paid attention to early on was the biggest, most visible things on stage were me or the other participants. So you start thinking about the human scale, right? So what's going to be bigger than that, longer than that, something bigger than someone's head? If you're going to have a pad, let's make sure the pad is big enough for people to see it. But really, it's about their reaction. So, you know, when you say a small card trick, you kill people with card tricks, max cards across. And what that does is both of those are examples where both of you have considered the scale of the interaction, and the objects are just kind of things we follow through the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To Mac, I was gonna say, Mac, you're I think the shining example of this. But the first place I ever heard it was from Williamson. I think Williamson doing Torn and Restored Transpo on stage is one of the greatest lessons in Magic, because what Willie taught me, and the reason I was able to even start to think about doing Magic on a stage, was knowing that you can just do close-up Magic on stage as long as everyone understands what's happening. And you simplified it by saying, like, it's more important that they hear the magic than that they see it. And if you watch Torn and Restored Transpo, it's true. I sat in the back of, I don't know, it was 1,000 people. I remember it was a big ballroom, the ballroom at one of the hotels, and it was just a big corporate show. And you brought someone up and did Torn and Restored Transpo, and it was a masterclass in clarity of effect and clarity of like the language you use, and everyone know, like, so you're holding that card, I have this card, and you like, and you just made sure that they understand, okay, there's a person over here and they're holding a card, and that person's over here, they're holding a card, and that happened, and now, oh, those cards change places. Now that effect, it could be like perceived as visual, but it's not. That's just information in their mind, and as long as they're carrying that information in their mind, the effect can
Well,
emerge.
you know, it doesn't work in a room like that, card on ceiling. I'll tell that story. So young Derek Delgado comes to one of my goofy corporate shows at the Broadmoor, and Matt King was on the show with me. It was an insurance show I did every year, and I brought different people. Mac killed him, and Mac is waiting in the wings to do his set. And I go out and I go, I'm just going to do a quick trick. I'm going to do card on ceiling. I have the wax on my button, and Derek, 15 years old, maybe 14, 15, 16, goes, hey, I have an idea. There's this idea. Here's what you do. You put the wax on the bottom of your Sharpie so that when you put the cap on the bottom of the Sharpie to hand them to sign the card, they can't touch it. And when you put the cap back on the top, it's right there in your fingers. I go, okay, kid, good idea. I'll do that. I get the guy up, right? I take the cap off. I put it, cover the little wax ball on the bottom of the Sharpie, write your name. The guy somehow jams the cap as he's taking it off. He takes the wax. He does it himself. I open my hand. He takes the thing off and shoves the wax is inside the cap, and now he shoves it all the way in with the point, and he hands me the wax. I take the lid off, and the wax is up inside. There's not going to be any card on ceiling, so I take that signed card, I go shuffle it in the deck, and I palm it out, and I'm going, now what the hell am I going to do? And I hear guffawing in the wings, you know, and I go, you remember your card? And he goes, yeah. I go, what was it? He goes, 3 of diamonds. I go, oh, that's the flyaway card. You know, a gag that everybody, a hack gag, you're going to pull it out of your fly. And I hear from the wings, no, it isn't. This Kentucky. Because that's right out of his act.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do
Pulls
that.
everything out of his fly. I go, no, it isn't. It's in my.
Yeah,
I don't
3
know.
of diamonds is known as the flyaway card, and I yell from the wings, no, it isn't. Fantastic.
And they still got paid.
Oh, yeah. Guys, it's 8:45. The auction is. I'm going to go shut down that. If your bids are in,
You have
that is
like
nightmare.
15 seconds to put in a final bid before he shuts it down. Go, go, go.
You have a few seconds. I mean, you maybe 15. I don't think so, because I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I'll wait till my clock goes 8:46, and then I'm going to
Okay.
shut it down. The winners will be notified via email.
Go, go,
The
go.
winners will be notified via email. Jason England's going to take care of that. Jason and Zach, and we'll figure out how to get everything to you. Okay. All right. 8:46. It's done officially. There we go.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
All right.
you,
We'll
thank you.
sort all the winners out later. Congratulations to everybody, and thanks a lot.
So, David, I had an offline request to tell a story that someone obviously knows about, but I don't know if they've heard it before. I just thought it'd be fun to end on a funny note.
Wait. Are we ending?
Well, in 15 minutes we are.
Yeah, in about 15 minutes. I just thought, you know, we don't want to tell the embarrassing stories, but the funny stories, since you just told one.
I was just sort of waving goodbye if we're ending. It was
No.
really be with
No,
us.
we got 15 minutes.
We got
okay.
more.
Sorry.
No, so I wrote about this like 3 or 4 days after it happened, because years ago, I mean 40 or 50 years ago, I found out from reading some science magazine or something about how infallible or how fallible our memories are. We think they're infallible, but we actually have a difficult time remembering details. So I've always been really good about making notes about funny stories and stuff that happen. I go home and I type it up like I'm telling it to somebody, and I just log them. And so this is one that somehow this story came up at Magic Live, and we told it, we had some laughs, and I came home to check my notes, make sure we had all the details right. And we do. We're all basically telling the same story. But it was at Luke Germai's mentalism workshops here in Las Vegas. I don't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but we were holding them at the Luxor, or he was holding them at the Luxor, but he put people up at the Tropicana Hotel, which is about to be torn down now. So, but we put people up there, and when Eric Mead arrived to check in, he's checking in at the desk at the counter there, and I wasn't staying at the hotel, but I happened to be with him, and Michael Weber was with him, and we're just waiting for Eric to check in. I think we're going to go up to his room, maybe get something to eat. I don't remember. And I happened to notice it was about yay big, about the size of a close-up pad, a little tray, and there were 4 dice, 4 Monopoly style dice, and there was a Yahtzee, a blue plastic Yahtzee cup sitting there, and there was a little placard that said, "Roll the dice, and if you get a pair, you win a coupon book, and if you get 2 pair, you win a free breakfast or something, and if you get 3 of a kind, you win tickets to one of their shows, and if you get 4 of a kind, you win $100 cash." And I saw that little sign, and I picked up the Yahtzee cup, and this Taco Bell cup will stand in for that. I pick up the Yahtzee cup, and I put the 4 dice in the cup with all 6s showing up, and I looked at it, and I don't know if you guys know the whip cup action like this. I whipped it a couple of times, and I looked to see if any of them had tumbled, because I didn't know if it would work with the Yahtzee cup or not. Sure enough, there's still 4 6s sitting there. So I set the cup back down very gingerly in its place with the dice still inside. And I'm sort of in my own little world doing this. Eric's not paying attention at all. He's just checking in. But I happened to look over on the far side of Eric, and Michael's standing there like this, and he goes, which means he knows his role in this story now. And so Eric finishes checking in, and the lady's like, she's handing him his keys. Will there be anything else? And Eric goes, no, I think that's about it. And Michael goes, yesterday when I was checking in, there was some dice and a cup, and I got to roll the dice, and I won a coupon book. And she goes, "Oh yeah, it's right over here next to this guy," pointing to me. And I playing dumb go, "Oh, you mean this thing?" And she goes, "Yeah, that's it." And Eric starts to reach for it, and Michael puts his hand on it and goes, "But Eric, as a Christian Scientist, you're not allowed to touch dice." and Eric looks at him as if to say, "What the hell are you talking about?" And the lady goes, "Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyone can roll." And so I pick up the cup and I go, "What do I do?"
One second.
I just
It's
shake them like
important
this
to
and roll them
understand.
out.
No, wait. It's important to understand that when he said that to me, for a second I was confused, but it only took a second or two for me to understand that I didn't need to know why, but I was in the middle of something that was happening, because my good friends would not say Christian Scientist and you can't touch dice and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yes, of course.
Right.
As a Christian Scientist, I cannot touch. It only took a second for me to understand. I didn't know what was happening, but I
He
knew
caught up very
something was
fast.
happening.
I've always believed that the best inside man is the guy that doesn't even know a con's in progress in the first place. So I whipped the cup a couple of times, and I go like that. And of course, the 4 dice, they're not tumbling in the cup. They're just kind of doing this inside there. So boom, 4 6s hit the layout. And the lady, and I go, 4 of a kind. What's that? Or no, Michael goes, 24. What's that get us? And she goes, "That's not 24. And he goes, "Sure it is. 6 and 6 is 12, and 12 times 6 is 24. She goes, no, you don't understand. That's 4 of a kind. You win $100 cash." And she turns and goes and walks away and gets a ledger book. And now Eric has realized the full plan, knows what's happened. She walks up to us, has Eric sign a ledger, and hands him $100 bill. And we walked away. And
So is that a felony or a misdemeanor? Where is that on the?
I looked in the
that's
Nevada
completely legal.
revised statutes. There's nothing in there about Yahtzee, but
I
The
believe
next
that's-
day, that game
What
was
about your
gone.
moral? What about just your soul? I mean, how did you feel?
$100.
I believe you've
man.
done this more than
As
once.
a Christian
Hey,
scientist,
I was all right with it, and we went and had lunch.
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, David, how about you and I winning?
oh yeah.
Does that bother your morals that your top change food
No,
and
no,
drink?
no. That's different. I didn't cheat. Oh, I guess I did. Yeah. It's different because it was me. What about the time Michael Weber and I were in a disco, in a bar, and
And you ended it, that was
we were
after the
doing a
very
show
first,
together, and all these drunk guys came in from a frat party. No, it was a bachelor party. These guys were
Right.
having a bachelor party. They were all drunk. All these bros came into this bar, and then the music started. And they were like, "Ah!" They start dancing. We're standing there. Somebody had a blow up sex doll that obviously was one of the gag gifts. And they start passing this sex doll across everybody because it's going to end up in the middle of the dance floor, and they're going to do all these rude things with it. And these guys are like coming out of the woodwork, going down. They see this, they see the next 4 minutes of their life is going to be this drunken, inappropriate sex doll stuff. So as they're passing this fully blown up sex doll, I take it, I hand it to Michael, and I look, and somewhere there's a flash of silver. He has a sharp knife that goes in and out and passes along to the next one. I mean, it happened in a flash. It was like this shiv, boom. And by the time it got to the middle of the dance floor, it was like this. And it was like a bunch of cavemen. They were like, oh. And they all went back to their beers, and the party stopped right then. The energy changed. It was like the, assassin of happiness, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
like
the vibe in the room. It was perfect.
Happiness is Weber's new nickname.
Yeah, assassin
It's all-
of the
it's
opposite
all
of the
about-
assassin of gloom. The
It's
assassin.
all
of
about
Glee.
the assassin
anticipating
of
the
gloom
effect.
is Mike Caveney's.
Yeah, I know. This is the opposite. He's the assassin of Glee.
Yeah, he's the assassin of Glee. That's right.
Yeah,
Michael,
Weber.
didn't you get yourself in a little trouble turning off all the TVs in one of the sports books here in Vegas with your?
I didn't get
I did that
caught,
too.
but I didn't get caught, but everybody looked for decades ago. That had to be 20 years ago. Cornfield.
Was it TV Be Gone? TV
Yep,
Be Gone?
the very
A little-
early one. Yep. And I
Yep,
walked
I
into a
had that.
giant sports book. I was on a second level by the escalators coming down. There had to be 100 TVs on the wall just to see. I had done it in Walgreens and places like that, before Walmart. So I just gave a quick press just to test, and everything goes black. And we were out of there before there was any.
This
Those
thing
guys
was
have
put
no
out
sense of humor
A
about that
couple
stuff.
thousand IR codes, random IR codes, and every TV just goes blink, 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 blink. You'd go into a Circuit City back then, or Best Buy, you hit it once and every TV would just blink off. I did it at the Atlanta airport during the playoffs. It was the same thing. All the my brother was in a wheelchair, and that was his superpower. He could move his thumb. So we'd go to different terminals. He'd just turn off all the TVs, and you see these guys like, oh, yelling at the Delta people, sir, we have nothing to do with the TV.
That's funny.
Anyway,
All right, where are we? We've got 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. I mean, we don't have to kill. Derek, are
Hey,
you?
Derek,
Derek wants to
you're
stay and
muted.
talk some more.
I'm
Derek, do
willing
the-
to hang
do the
out
truffle
for a
shuffle.
while. I know everyone else has to go, but my family is not even home. I could hang out a bit.
All right.
I don't need to be done in 4 minutes. I don't want to go another 3 hours.
Right, right,
Derek,
right.
you're
Thank you.
muted, by
It
the
doesn't
way.
have to be by the clock with me.
Sure.
Jason,
Yes, sir.
quickly, do you have a funny story about Rod the Hop? Like
Oh,
something really funny you were
the
put into?
Hop.
By the way, I did see you do the V-Dice thing at another hotel, I believe, unless it was the same moment. But if, Rod was one of
I
the
was
best,
sitting
obviously.
in a diner in Vegas with Jason having lunch, and he gets this phone call, and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I don't know, Kings. How many players?"
That's the story I was going to tell.
30
That's my
second
favorite Rod.
conversation. I go, "Who is that?" He goes, "Rod the Hop. He's hiding in the bathroom down at the boardwalk
Yeah.
in a private game. He wanted to double duke some guys, basketball players, and I had to help him stack his deck."
He'd already used the one he knew.
Oh yeah, more than that. So yeah, that's a famous story. It happened more than once, but the funny version of it was I got a call. I was actually driving, and I said, "What's going on?" I used to joke with him. I said, "I always answer when Rod calls because I never know if it's going to be his one phone call." And he said, "Hey,
that's not a joke.
no, it wasn't really." But Rod
You
goes,
might be his one phone call.
"It might be." He goes, "Hey, I need a cold deck sequence. Give me one." And I go, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." I've always liked give the sucker ace king suited, and he never quite gets there, and you wind up beating him with like a pair of queens. And he goes, give me another one." I go, "Okay, give him ace king not suited, and give him 2 to a straight on the flop, and he never quite gets there. You still beat him with a pair of queens or something, something small, something not memorable. But professional poker players would be all in with hands like that in the right situation." Give me another one. I don't know, set over set. I mean, that feels like a sledgehammer to me, but give him 3 queens, you're going to beat him with 3 kings. Give me another one. And I go, "Well, I can't think of one right now. I've got a whole bunch of them written down at home. As soon as I get home, I'll call you and read you some of them." He goes, "No, I need it right now. I'm in the bathroom right now. I need it right now." So he was actually calling me from some game somewhere in the bathroom, setting up a cold deck somewhere.
And he had already used all the ones.
He had already run through all of those and 4 or 5 others that he knew.
To bring it full
There's another
circle,
funny story
Would you
about
tell-
Rod. Yeah.
I was going to say, to bring it full circle at the end, it'd be great if you told a gambling story that involved you and a dog.
Oh, I will for sure. That is a good full circle. So another funny story that involved Rod, in a way, he financed this story, is that his father passed away and left Rod quite a bit of money, $22,000, $23,000, something like that. And Rod lived in a bad neighborhood, and he lived with some shady people that he didn't fully trust. So he asked me if I would hold on to $20,000 in cash for him. And I said, "Yeah, sure." So we go to the bank, and he gets out the cash, and he gives me 2, those bundles of cash that you see in the movies. They put them all in the briefcase. They're really bundled like that, a little bundle like this with the bank band on it. 2 bundles of $10,000 each. And so I go, "Yeah, I'll take them." So I put them in my pocket, and I dropped him off at the house. And I was going that night to Mac King's house to play poker with him and some of our friends. And so I get to Mac's house with this 20,000 in my jacket, and Mac is there, and he's we're getting set up for the poker game.
And so a lot of these people, it's not all magicians. It's not just like you guys. I mean, it's like singers here in town and a couple of attorneys, and so it's not all magicians, right?
So there are some suckers in the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I walk up to Mac, and we did this 4 or 5 times, these poker games at Mac's house, and it was always a $20 buy-in. And so I walk up to Mac, and as a joke, I said, "Hey, Mac, is the buy-in still 20? And I reach in my pocket and I pull out these 2 packets of 10,000, what Weber's showing on the screen there, and I slap them down on the poker table. And Mac, he's like, arranging the chips, counting out chips or whatever, doesn't miss a beat. He just goes, "Yep," and just sets them aside. No hint of a joke, no hint of me joking around or anything. Just, "Yep, that's right," sets them aside and keeps going. Well, one of the guys that doesn't know or didn't know me very well, I think maybe have been Mac, your business partner's attorney. Is that Bill Volkner's attorney or something like that?
No, he was an attorney. He was an attorney for Caesars, but our kids were friends. Our kids went to school together.
Gotcha. Well, this guy kind of goes pale when I said that. And he cut into you and said, "Hey, Matt, can I talk to you for a second?" And I knew exactly what he wanted to talk about. So I just kind of moved off to the side. I don't know what he said to you, but I knew what he was going to say. What did he wind up saying to you?
Well, he's like, when you said 20, I thought $20.
And did you do like a spit take, like $20?
No, I wish. Yeah, No, I let him off the hook pretty quick. I think. Unfortunately, I could have drug him out a little more, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Too kind, Matt King. You have a
Yeah.
good.
But there's another little footnote to that story, right, Jason?
yes, there is, because I went home and I put that $20,000 cash on the countertop. It's like midnight or so, and I wrote a note to my wife that said I was the big winner at Matt King's poker game, and went to bed, and just leaving that for her in the kitchen. And of course, the joke was on me, because at about 5:15 in the morning, she woke me up and said, "Hey, did you really win 20 grand at Matt King's poker game?" And I'm like, "No, I lost $20 there. That belongs to Rod." And she went, "Oh, okay." So we wound up putting it in the counters, in a cabinet somewhere.
But she had already bought a car.
Yeah, really.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
She did have a great line because I stumbled. Jason kept it in the kitchen for some reason, and I lived with them at the time. And I opened it and found it and just kind of looked at Joy, and she's like, "Oh, we're getting into rap." It's like, sweet.
Yeah. So
So what's the dog story?
so Ricky Jay told this story on that show that he was working on, I guess, that never came out, right, Michael? Conversations. And he liked this story. It's an absolutely true story. It happened to me. I guess it was, I want to say probably would have been 2004, because I think Chris Moneymaker, who I happened to go to high school with, Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker in 2003, I believe. And the year after that, the whole world's playing Hold'em, because here's some guy that won a $40 buy-in online tournament, made it all the way to the main event, and wins the thing.
And he had not played a lot of live poker. He was an online player.
Right. Yeah. He's an online guy, for the most part. So he wins in 2003 or 4. So it would have been just after that. All the guys on base, I was still active duty military at the time, they're all playing poker. And I got invited to these games, and it was the same sort of thing. A $20 buy-in, 8 of us would buy in. So there's $160 to split 3 ways at the end. So, somebody's getting $100, somebody's getting, $40 or whatever. Somebody's getting their money back. And, we probably paid for drinks and chips out of that money too. So I get a hold of a tin. And when I say tin, I mean like one of the little things that Daub comes in. It's not much. It's not, this is a little bit bigger. This is a bottle cap off my soda, but a tin of Daub isn't much smaller than this. And it was Gary Plantz's Silver Sheen Daub, which he used to sell on his website. And I bought a tin of it, and I wanted to play with it. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I wanted to play with it. So I stick it in my pocket, and I go to this game. And I practiced putting it on cards at home, and you could read it if you sometimes hold it up to the light. If you put it on too light, if you put it on too strong, it looks like somebody hit it with a paintbrush. And I'm not really trying to cheat at cards, because I wouldn't know what, you could turn the cards face up, and I wouldn't necessarily at that time have known what to do with the information. So I'm just sort of putting stuff on the backs of the cards, not at random, but almost randomly. I'm just marking up everything I see. But the whole time I'm doing this, Floyd, who was their boxer, beautiful chocolate brown boxer, is in the house, and he's running around. He's going up to all the people and trying to get pets and trying to get attention. And so Floyd is under the table, sort of at my right. And when he found me, he found someone that loved dogs. So I'm giving Floyd love and attention under the table, just patting his head and rubbing his ears and scratching his face and all that. Of course, he's not going to go anywhere. So for 20 minutes, he does this. And I'm loving on Floyd. And at one point, I happened to, as the game was sort of, we weren't breaking up, but we were pausing the game to get drinks and stuff. I happened to look down at Floyd's face, and he's got smears of silver goo all over his face that had come off my fingertip. I mean, it looked like he had gotten into his mother's makeup or something. It was unbelievable. And so I just sort of panicked like that. I look at him and I'm like, what am I going to do? So I like, people are kind of getting up and milling about, and he's still under the table. So I run down the hall to the bathroom, but I'm going, Floyd, come here, buddy, come here, come with me, come on.
Jason,
Good
I think
boy.
you explain why this dog has silver smears of paint on his face.
Oh, because dog
Saliva.
well, yeah, saliva, but the dog comes off my finger. It's because, I'm rubbing his head and he's licking my hands and all sorts of stuff. So I get him into the bathroom and I like find a washcloth and I'm trying to scrub the top of his head with a washcloth, panicking that I'm gonna be found out as a card cheater, even though I'm not. I'm just an idiot. But anyway, I got him mostly cleaned up where you couldn't tell what any
No,
of
they
that.
just thought you were some weird guy that took their dog into the bathroom with you and he came out with a
Makeup
wet
on it, yeah.
face.
They didn't notice that part, but it was pretty
Why is
fun.
there lipstick on my dog?
Yeah. I've got a good friend here in town who tells me, reminds me of all these different cheating stories, and they're all the same.
You
I
have
mean,
great stories. They just don't have a good ending. It's like, and then nothing happens. It's a huge, long, shaggy